Good Friday morning and happy day 2 of the two greatest days in all of sports. The NCAA tournament continues to roll along today after kind of being a little bit mid yesterday. If we're being honest, we will get all into that. It was a fine day of basketball. It wasn't the greatest day of basketball, but hey, when you have a day where literally all you're required to do, not only just like from a social aspect, but from a physical aspect, is just sit back on your couch and watch basketball games, who's really going to be complaining? Certainly not me, and certainly not the two people that I am joined with today. Matt McMaster here, joined with the Husker Max editor-in-chief.
Incorrect.
Czar of words.
Here's the thing. You and I are very good friends. We've known each other for a while. I'm just going to call you the editor-in-chief of Husker Max, and whether or not it's your title, that's just kind of your title. What is your actual title?
David and Joe, I'm not telling him to say that.
Vice President of Basketball Operations for Husker Max.
Vice
lead
GM.
writer. Lead writer.
The Pat Stewart of Husker Max.
Lead writer.
Lead writer for Husker Max. Mr. Caleb.
Friend.
Don't get me in trouble.
Caleb Henry. Jimmy Chavez on the ones and twos. Sounded there for half a second like my counterpart, who's typically on the Gary Matt show, Gary Sharp, who
hence the name,
I think is already home in Omaha.
I would think if it's anything like what we did in the tournament when I was at Kansas a few years ago, especially with the late night, they probably go back to the hotel because last game of the season, you honestly celebrate the season and what it is.
Celebrate the season. Absolutely.
Get a meal, get a shower, just relax, and they'll come home today fully rested.
See, typically Gary does tweet out hey, I'm back on the ground, back in Omaha tweet. He did not tweet that out.
Because they probably didn't get back to the hotel till about 2 a.m.
Probably not. No, Eastern time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No. I mean,
Did you see his tweet when they landed up there?
What?
Hooters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Found a Hooters right away.
Somebody wanted wings.
Gary
want wingy.
Gare found his way into the passenger seat of the cop car.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Why am I not surprised?
If that was the police escort. So I don't know if you listened to the show yesterday.
I don't know if I did.
But
I was here.
The Omaha Mavericks, they obviously have a state patrol. They have they clear out the roads and they let the bus get to the arena as quick as possible. And they were given essentially a trooper named Trooper Donahue. And that was their guy, their entire trip. Like Trooper Donahue is he's
a Maverick for life now.
To the hip of the Omaha Mavericks. And Gary got on the show and he's like, I'm loosening him up. Like, I'm getting to him. Like, he's a pretty serious cat, and obviously he's a trooper. Did you see? You should look at some of Gary's tweets. He tweeted a picture of Trooper Donahue. The guy looks like he's right out of a Smokey Bear commercial. Like, he is wearing that.
Or me, myself, and Irene.
Yeah, that exact getup. Anyway, he was telling us he was trying to get Trooper Donahue to let him be in the front of the cop car during the police escort. And the trooper wouldn't allow him to do that. And then Jimmy and I were both like, you're going to get in the front of that cop car.
He's going to wear him down.
If it's the last thing that Gary Sharp does, it's going to be able to kind of convince his way into a vehicle motor patrol, which he did. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I knew he was in the front seat. I knew that part.
So he did it. Good for Gary. I cannot wait for the breakdown on Monday when he will be back. And when will he will be back to give a soliloquy and
Are you older than Trooper Donahue?
He's a young cat. So apparently he just became a trooper.
That's a young dude.
Imagine if he was really a cat.
Ago. So Gary was asking if he could do some certain funny things, and he had to call. Like, he was like, hey, can you take a picture with Coach Crutchfield? And Trooper Donahue had to call his first sergeant to ask him if he could do it because he just became.
He's like, I haven't been around long enough to know.
He wants to do everything right.
Like, can I do this?
He look like a guy who just, like, when he was 8 years old, he knew that was exactly what he wanted to do.
Well, it looks like he's 8 years old.
Yeah, some kids play doctor, some play cop.
He looked like he was born to protect and serve. That's what he looks like. He just looks like he was born to make life better and safer for all of us. So shout out Trooper Donahue.
He looks like he keeps the forests of Rhode Island safe.
Yeah, you're not going to mess around in Rhode Island.
It's a little Smokey Bear. That hat is Smokey Bear. But Gary will be back Monday, and like I said, he will come back, and I'm sure he will give an incredible speech about the insane season that the Omaha Mavericks had. 13 years ago, they were not a Division I program. When I would talk to Gary, even before I became the co-host of the show, him and I would talk about UNO basketball, and he had continued to say, the minute we talked about it, how them making it to the NCAA tournament would be the greatest accomplishment.
That's true. You said you two talked 13 years ago about that stuff.
Yeah. Well, not 13.
Oh.
But
that would have been cute.
But
Gary's friend.
How that would be such an incredible accomplishment. And man, there were moments, I think, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of Gary, but I'm sure there were moments where people around the athletic department and around maybe the state thought maybe that wouldn't happen for quite a while. But 3 years ago, they hired a guy who probably should have been hired way before to be a head coach, and Chris Crutchfield, who in these last 3 years has not only done an incredible job of recruiting talent, but developing talent. And then on top of that, building an incredible culture around Omaha basketball. And they went on this incredibly magical run that captivated the hearts of not only just the people of Omaha, but just sports fans across this state. And they did it their own way, which watching this team and I'm, hearing Gary talk about this team, it's only the way that they could do it. This was their own team. It was a player-led team. It was a team that wanted to play for each other, that enjoyed playing together, that was incredibly tight. And winning the Summit League regular season, winning the Summit League title, and then making it to the NCAA tournament. Like J.J. White said yesterday in the postgame, it wasn't the result they wanted against St. John's, but now a lot of people who may not have known who Omaha was now know who Omaha is. And at the beginning of the next season, all those guys will, depending on where some of them end up, but at the beginning of next season, we'll have an incredible celebration where we will fill up Baxter Arena and hang up 3 banners and just remember this year. And a lot of people, especially the UNO alumni who have watched this program grow and in some way suffered watching this program not reach very high heights, or not the highest heights, at least until this year. So an incredible accomplishment from the Omaha Mavericks. I've been very lucky to be able to be on this show to kind of experience this rise and experience this journey with the guy who's been boots on the ground with it for a very, very long time. And it's like I tweeted out yesterday. Yeah, and we'll get into the game. Yeah, it wasn't the result you were looking for, and maybe you would have liked that game to have been a bit closer. But man, no one and nothing can ever take away from what the Omaha Mavericks did this season. And so congratulations to them. I'm sure when they come back today, hopefully they'll have a hero's welcome, and there should be some sort of celebration for them to celebrate this incredible
fish fry.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
Start of the game was electric. Start of the game was absolutely electric. Same thing for my SIUE Cougars with a dunk on the first possession.
Hell yes. Stop the game. We're done.
And then they scored 38 points the rest of the game. But no, talking about Omaha, and this is one of the things about when you get into the tournament, and you've heard some other coaches for mid-major programs talk about this, not this year especially, but you hear about it in the past, and you see the fallout, the results of making the big dance. I'd be curious to hear from UNO. Are applications up?
Yeah.
Are information requests up? Because you see it for all of these other places. As soon as they get into the dance, McNeese's coach was talking about how X percentage higher applications they have right now.
Yeah.
I'd be really curious to hear that about Omaha, because
it's an effect.
It's
man.
a real thing that happens every single year.
Let me tell you something right now. Like everybody kind of knows I'm a younger cat, right? But some of these schools,
people forget this.
These lower mid-major schools, kids my age are introduced to them through the NCAA tournament. Okay, I did not know, and this will date me, but I was 11 years old in 2013. Okay.
Same.
I did not know
Florida Gulf
Coast University existed. I did not know that FGCU existed. As an 11-year-old, when they upset Georgetown, and funny enough, Gary was on the call for that, that is when I discovered who they were. I'll tell you something right now.
You thought about going to school
more
there.
recent. I did, because I'm a sport nut, but...
And it's warm.
a lot of kids my age, and this was still, when I, still kind of older, didn't know who Murray State was before John Morant, right? I mean, there are these smaller schools. How many people knew of Fairleigh Dickinson? How many people knew of St. Peter's before?
I did, but I don't count.
Well, you can go back to some of the earlier runs for Gonzaga.
Sure.
And now that's just an every year thing.
Exactly.
They used to be Cinderella back then, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember. The slipper still fits.
You had the runs with Butler. Obviously, people knew Butler. They knew that gym was used for Hoosiers, but seeing the actual runs for Butler, you can even go to football in Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl win over Oklahoma. Like
they used to be known for blue turf.
Yeah, you saw these things happen. You saw whether it's this or you had Oregon start to get really flashy with their uniforms in the mid to late 2000s.
Yeah.
Like that's how a lot of people in central Nebraska went, oh, Oregon might not be such a bad deal. It is such a spotlight on this tournament that I'm so happy Omaha got in. You're right. It ended up not going the way that you would have wanted it to go. It's a tough situation, a 2 versus a 15.
But it's 7-0. That was pretty cool to see that little going to break.
7-0 and a timeout there. That was phenomenal. That's so cool to see. And it's cool to see for a lot of these programs that they finally got there. And this is, I know when we were on, when I was in here with you on Tuesday and we were talking, and this is kind of that promise fulfilled on the transition from D2 to D1.
A little bit, yeah.
It is that it's tough years and you cut a couple of sports and I'm not going to tell anyone to ever not be sour about that.
Sure.
And then you have the decade plus, and hockey's been hockey. And you love to see that. And you've seen some of the others.
It's been a hockey athletic.
Yeah. And you've seen some of the other sports kind of come up. But for men's basketball to get there, it's like this is where some of that D1 money starts to add in a little bit. This is where some of those extra admissions add in a little bit. So it's great to see Omaha get there.
There is an effect. There is an effect. There is a proven effect that when you make the big dance and when you're on national television, and like I said, look, St. John's is a tough matchup for anybody, but it was the benefit of Omaha and for this exposure for them to play St. John's because that game was on big CBS. Okay. You had, national broadcasters smashing trash cans and promoting the Mavericks and talking about how incredible their run has been.
If you're invested in Omaha, you had to be tearing up when you see Evan Washburn do that because you're like, what dream am I living in?
I know.
That was beautiful hair. We're jealous.
I have a buddy, my roommate, grew up in Omaha. And before the game, he was like, I don't think you understand like how incredible this is to see this school in this spot. Like it's indescribable how people maybe in the past had looked at Omaha just as a school, as a commuter school in general, and to see the steps that it's taken, not only just from a, sport perspective, but also just, an infrastructure and academic perspective. And like yesterday was a culmination of a lot of really, really hard work from a lot of people, going on down from people who still aren't there. Jim writes in the comics, we need to talk about all the good things Trev did for Omaha. Would still be an afterthought D2 commuter school without his decisions from 2009 to 2021. Gary definitely has talked about that in the past and, the groundwork that had been laid. But you also have to shout out Adrian Dowell and the incredible work that he's done in bringing in Coach Chris Crutchfield. And
getting all the leadership lined up.
And the investment that he has put in basketball, and then Chancellor Lee,
Imagine their goosebumps last night as this is all happening.
I mean, it's just in general.
How many other places pull a chancellor out of the trash can?
Look, to be invested in sports is not a prerequisite of being a chancellor. You have a lot of things on your plate. You don't necessarily have to be all in on sports. And kudos to Chancellor Lee for doing that. And I'll never forget, Coach Chris Crutchfield on their selection show on Sunday, standing up in front of the crowd, the massive crowd that was there, and an incredible party. To celebrate such a great accomplishment. The way that he looked at Chancellor Lee and thanked her and said, thank you for supporting us. Thank you for being there for us. Thank you for, lending, just invest. I don't want to say investing, but just, and I don't want to keep using the same word, but she is invested in that program and has given that program a lot of support, and it's only more welcome. So
there's a unity of vision across the that you see all the way around UNO.
There are a lot of people who want basketball to be good, and you know what? Basketball got good. It's kind of It's kind of how it went.
And now, in what I
people
don't,
who wanted basketball to be good,
and what I don't want
They built
is in this immediacy the concern about, okay, other jobs open up. Can you keep Crutchfield?
Yeah.
There are other
Let's-
opportunities in the transfer portal. Can you keep X player, Y player? I hope at least for this weekend, because
I'm
there'll
gonna
be
say this. It pissed me off last night. Okay, it pissed me off last night.
that's why I know where
people-
you're going. That's
Yeah.
why I'm saying I hope at least through the weekend, let Gary get back on Monday, let
Yes.
him speak his piece, and then have those off-season conversations. Because right now, Omaha was in the big dance. Celebrate that through the weekend.
Because we'll just get this out of the way right now. I got PO'd because yesterday was Omaha's moment. And like we said over and over again, the incredible accomplishment of, running the table in a Dakota league. We're pretty clear league. Probably would have liked a South Dakota State or a North Dakota State or someone from that area to be in the tournament. But to run the table that they did and to make the NCAA tournament is an accomplishment. Man, did it make me mad that there were people on Twitter who were like, J.J. White would make a great Husker. Markel Sutton would make a great Husker. You know what? For once, let's just let the Mavericks have their moment. Let's just let UNO people or Omaha alumni, Omaha graduates, people who currently go to Omaha, diehard fans of Omaha, let's allow those people to have their damn moment and watch the damn game and follow along without anyone else being like, oh, that's a mid-major program, and I would really love to poach their players. Shut up. Just shut up. Let's just not talk about that. Let's just say thank you and say, hey, I appreciate the fact that Omaha has given me a team to root for because the team that I would like to poach players from them wasn't competent enough to close the door and end up in the tournament. Okay?
Listen to our young curmudgeon.
Let's just have a grace period. And
that's what I was saying.
No, I know. Yeah. I want to get it out there. Let's just have a bit of a grace period and say, kumbaya, my lord. What a great season.
If I had a human son, Matt.
When I was reading the tweets yesterday about, Markel Sutton would make a great Husker. Oh my, let's not make it about you for 2 seconds, okay? Just want to put that.
It's all right. Keep cooking.
And I know that's not all Husker fans, okay? And I know that's
you're among friends.
And I know that's not everybody. And I'm not calling out everybody. I'm just calling out the people who did that on Twitter, and it was a very minority group of people. And if you did not do it, I am not mad at you. I'm only mad at the people who did do it, okay? Because just let UNO have their moment. They had their moment yesterday in the first half. It was an incredible start, a 7-0 run. Unfortunately, what the game came down to was they had their shots. They couldn't get hot, okay?
And St. John's wears you down.
They could not find that stride. They still battled valiantly. They were down 2. I mean, they played one hell of a great defensive half and battled against one of the best teams in the country.
Moved
for
the ball
20
well.
minutes. The score was 30-28. They got the ball back, and then the ball rolls off of the leg of J.J. White, goes back down to St. John's. They get a 3-point play to end the half. That was a really, really big swing that gave St. John's a little bit momentum heading into the locker room, and then they came out, and it was a flamethrower. And if St. John's is going to hit threes like that in the second half throughout the rest of the tournament, that is going to be your national champion. Plain and simple.
Watch, they'll go 2 of 30 tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow. But and also there's a psychology thing, guys, with St. John's, where they play defense so hard, and they wear down on you, like you were saying, Jimmy. But it's almost as if when you do get a really good look, it's like 4 seconds left in the shot clock, and you're kind of like, we can shoot.
And the legs might not all be there later in the game because you're working so hard.
Here's the ball, and you shoot the ball, and
here's what's so confusing about that, though, because you
get surprised.
And for me, because the team that I watched the most over the course of the year was University of Nebraska Cornhuskers. How many times, Matt, did we see really good defense for 25 seconds?
Yeah.
And in exactly the situation that you just said, really good defense. Didn't allow a single good look, anything. And then there's a decent look with 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. 158% of the time that shot's going in. Whereas against
Yeah, I
St.
know.
John's,
St. John's, it
they've
doesn't.
worn you down because of their physicality.
it's a
with it.
0.58% it's
yeah.
going.
Yeah, with 3 seconds left, it's not as good of a look.
It's a different. It's just a different type of defense. It's a different type of team.
So you're saying Nebraska needs Patino? They have Big Ten money.
Apparently, everyone needs Patino.
that's-
No, but for St. John's, the concern a few weeks ago was their offense.
Yeah.
And then what they were able to do through the Big East Conference tournament, including against Creighton. But over the last couple of weeks of the season, and then to come out the second half yesterday, the offense has been there. So if you can combine all of those things for St. John's, they're really dangerous. What does it look like though with this pod? How far can you get there, and then how far can you get with that region?
So if you're looking down to the last, let's do 7 results, eight results. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 results for the St. John's Johnnies. Or Red Storm. This is just the amount of points they've scored. 79, 82, 89, 76, 71, plenty enough against Seton Hall out of all teams. 86, 78, 79, 82. They are in that 75 to 80 range, and with the defense that they play, if they stick in that range, it's going to be a tough out. 83 points yesterday. It's one of those things too where it's hard to prepare for the St. John's team. You know, there are certain teams that play similar styles of basketball to each other that might have some similarly built teams, right? And some of the really good ones are incredibly unique in the way that they're built. But like, you know, Big Ten teams, you're going to have a dominant presence for the most part, right? That probably then is cyclical or cycles around having a good point guard and some good shooting. Okay. Like that's the SEC. You're going to have a lot of athleticism and a lot of length, right? Like that's what you're going to fight up against. St. John, like you can, you know, not all conferences and not all teams in those conferences are built the same, but you get what I'm saying.
They tend to have a brand,
yes,
a general style, and then you work around that.
St. John's is St. John's. They are just who they are. They are big. They are physical. They are long. They are coached really tough by one of the greatest of all time, and we will get to that in that coaching matchup that will happen in the round of 32. They foul on a lot of plays. But it's one of those things where it's like, I think the referees know that if they call everything, the games are going to be 3.5 to 4 hours, and they want to get home to their hotels and to their families. And so they get away with a lot. But you know what? If you get away with a lot, doesn't mean it's illegal. They rebound really, really hard.
Just call everything and foul them out. And then they don't have anything to do the rest of the game.
And like Gary said, they shut off the faucet when it comes in the second half. They are just a different second half animal. They just come out and they're just on it immediately from both ends of the floor. So St. John's are great. I don't think Omaha is particularly awful. I think that just at a certain point in the second, like in the first half, they competed against them the entire way. You would have wished for them to have made a couple of the really good looks that they got. They didn't. And in the second half, you kind of just saw the roof kind of cave in a little bit from just the pressure and neck breathing that the Red Storm were doing. But
you know what Omaha didn't do yesterday?
They didn't fold. They didn't give up.
They didn't embarrass themselves.
No, they didn't. They really didn't.
There were multiple games yesterday where if someone turned that thing on 10 minutes into the game, they went, "This is embarrassing." What are you doing, Clemson?
Okay. So
what are you doing, Georgia?
Yeah.
Like you saw some of those games yesterday for bigger teams, power conference teams. And it was embarrassing the product that they put out there. And yeah, Clemson, it ends up being close at the end. But
who cares?
But who cares? All that matters is a win or a loss.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what you got out of Omaha was you showed up, you played hard, and you didn't embarrass yourself.
And people know who you are now. And people can look at that first half and be like, hey, you know what? Good for them. They're building something. As long as they can keep Coach Chris Crutchfield, which we're not even going to entertain a conversation because, man, not only is he one hell of a coach, but he's one hell of a human. And this show has been lucky enough to have him on.
It's a great ambassador for the program.
It's a great ambassador for the program. And, the longer he is here, the better it is for the athletic department. So I just want to say congratulations to the players. Congratulations to Athletic Director Adrian Dahl. Congratulations to Chancellor Lee. Congratulations to Coach Chris Crutchfield. And congratulations to our very own Gary Sharp.
And Durango. Don't forget Durango.
Stuck with that team through thick and through thin. And, man, he enjoyed. I'm so glad that, he kind of had this week to really revel in that and enjoy that. And, he did great work and came on the last couple of days. And so shout out Gary. Just incredible stuff. All right, we moved to one Omaha team to another Omaha team who looked damn good yesterday.
Well, first, it was a little bit scary because the shots weren't falling. That 0 for 5 start from 3.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I started to go, all right, if you're not hitting threes, it's good.
I didn't know we were getting granular. I was making a macro statement.
No. I'm saying beginning of the game, I had concerns for Creighton.
Sure.
And then, holy crap.
So
it flipped and they went off and the pressure was extra on Louisville. It was tough. Chucky Hepburn was still all they had, and it was tough for him. And Creighton hit on everything, and good Lord, welcome to the big dance, Jemiah Neal.
Yeah. So let's get into this. Right. I'm saying macro, they look damn good. But you're right. At the beginning, it was a bit of a attention convention. It was like, hey, this is the game we thought it was going to be. Like, this is going to be incredibly close. These two teams are going to battle it out all the way to the end. I think the game started with, it was 18-17 at one point, and then it just exploded into eventually having a 34-25, then it turned into 40-25 lead with 4 minutes to go in the second half. I think it was that moment where it was like, oh, this run is like, this is a legit run. Like, this is where Creighton is going to make their move, is that kind of first Jackson McAndrew 3 that made it 34-25. You're like, oh, okay, here we go now. And then he makes another 3-pointer to make it 40-25. And you're like, oh Lord. All right. And then kind of in that second half, when Ryan Kalkbrenner makes that 3 basically out of the gate, you're like, oh, this might be Carter's
already.
Set a
tone.
It was one of those, and it's a little overblown because Kalk can make those shots. Like, he's made those shots plenty, not only just this year, but the last 2 years. He made one against Oregon in the NCAA tournament. It was one of the best shots I've ever seen. When he made that to make it 52-36, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, this is going to happen. This might actually happen. This might be legit. They just might cruise all the way to the finish line. Couple of points away. You're absolutely right. Jemiah Neal, welcome to the big dance. It was funny. Pat Kelsey in his postgame was like, the mid-range shot really is a low percentage, a more low percentage shot. And, number 5 was just absolutely out of his mind, doing inconceivable stuff on the basketball court. And yesterday, and you weren't here, but Gary and I were talking about the game, and I think initially when Creighton got this matchup, people were concerned. They were like, oh, damn, like, this is an 8 seed they're playing that should be a 6 seed, and Creighton is a 9 seed that should be an 8 seed, and Stephen Ashworth is still a great player, but hasn't played his best basketball entirely as of late. And Chucky Hepburn is going to be a really tough assignment for him. But when I did a little bit more digging, I was like, man, Ryan Kalkbrenner is going to be the kryptonite of this Louisville team. You saw that in the first half, where it was almost as if they were like going to the basket, and then they would see a big 7'1" dude and be like, oh crap. Oh, I don't know what to do here, and put up a bad shot. And then in the second half, it's almost as if they like entirely, they abandoned a lot of that and just started trying to settle more for threes. And it was just really difficult to get in the paint for Louisville in general. And then, that maybe if Louisville, and all this to say, Pat Kelsey being like a mid-range shot is a low percentage shot. Maybe if Louisville practiced a mid-range shot and would take the quote-unquote lower percentage shot, maybe they would have had a better chance yesterday, because putting your head down and putting your shoulder down and going to the paint was not the way to attack Ryan Kalkbrenner, especially in that first half.
Well, the biggest part of the scouting report, and like I was wrong on the game on the way I thought the result was going to go. I'll say that. Sure. I'm fine with that. But the biggest part of the scouting report, when we were breaking this down the other day, and you said it wouldn't hold that big of an effect as I was bringing it up, saying here's a thing that could work out in Creighton's favor. It looked like a team that was just thrown together this year and had a coach who had never won in the big dance.
So the latter.
And when you got into, especially that run that Creighton made, and then you got into the second half, and like I said, it was tough for Hepburn, but he still got his. He made good passes. Guys didn't finish shots. But for the rest of that Cardinals team, they were so out of sorts. You have an awful technical foul when your team is still in it.
I know.
It was a coach who looked overwhelmed. It was a team that looked overwhelmed because they were all there for the first time together with a coach who had not experienced success in March. And for Creighton, all of that consistency of playing together, especially with Stephen Ashworth and Ryan Kalkbrenner, and of course, Coach McDermott, all of those things with that experience took over early in the game and then coasted in the second half. And you said, here's our experience. Oh, also, here's this X factor in Jemiah Neal that we're able to unleash right now.
Pat Kelsey looked like he didn't watch 1 ounce of film on the Creighton Blue Jays.
No, they watched film on Auburn.
And Greg McDermott.
All of their walkthroughs were on Auburn.
Greg McDermott, from top to bottom, out-coached that man. Not only just from a defensive standpoint, but from an offensive standpoint, where Pat Kelsey, 93, Waterman, should not be guarding Jemiah Neal. Waterman should not be on him. Your most unathletic shooting guy should not be on arguably the most athletic player on Creighton, who, if you had watched Creighton basketball before, you would know Jemiah Neal in his mid-range game. That's how I know he didn't watch tape, because he was out of his mind. Jemiah Neal has made those like fadeaways before. He is really good in the mid-range post. It's one of those skills that is dying. It's very DeMar of Jemiah to do what he was doing yesterday, but it was working and they kept going to the well. And it was just Greg McDermott coached circles around Pat Kelsey, just from what they were doing on defense to how they were handling the shooters on the outside to the motions. And I mean, there were so many times where Creighton just ran great sets and you were like, wow, that guy was wide open and they missed him. And then they'd run another one like, oh, he's wide open. Oh, they hit him. Oh, they hit the shot. Like it was an incredible, we talk about it, and I've kind of been guilty of saying sometimes like, man, like the whole coaching in March, maybe that gets a little bit too blown out of proportion. You know, if you have a good team and you've had a good season, it shouldn't matter that greatly. And eventually, like Calipari had to win his first couple games, right? Patino had to win his first couple games. Hell, Greg McDermott has had to win his first couple of games. This is trials and tribulations that coaches.
Well, you're talking about this tournament. Can John Shire get to the Final Four and get it done?
Yes, exactly. And so it's like, all these guys eventually, no one has ever not broken through the glass ceiling. But it was very clear yesterday, if watching these two teams side by side, what team had the coach who had a tremendous amount of NCAA tournament experience
and success,
and what coach hadn't had that experience and success. And it's not like Pat Kelsey hasn't been to the tournament. I mean, he went to the tournament. He's been to the tournament 5
times. 0 for 5.
4 times, 4 or 5 times.
It was 4 times before this with his 2 previous stops.
So,
and they'd lost each time. And that's the point that I brought up, is that it's one thing to get there. It's another thing to win, to get over the hump and have your team have that success. And that definitely played out into Creighton's favor, and you watched it play out in Creighton's favor.
But, I mean, overall, Jemiah Neal, absolutely incredible. 29 points, a career high, 11 of 16 from the field. Ryan Kalkbrenner, 6 of 8 from the field, 14 points, looked awesome on defense. Jason Green has, man, the role that he has taken over these last couple of weeks of just being a defensive stalwart, but also great rebounder, but not afraid to get his own. 9 points yesterday. He was great. And then we have to say it, because I've been giving him a lot of flack. And man, did he shut me the hell up yesterday. Stephen Ashworth, 22 points, 6 of 13 from the field, hit 4 3-pointers. And a lot of people were like, man, this is going to, we're worried about Ashworth, myself included, about the matchup would be, he stepped up big time. And a guy who's happy to see him step up is calling in right now. We haven't heard from you in a little bit, buddy. Andrew, your boys are going to the round of 32. How are you, man?
Good. It's great to hear you eat some crow.
I'm eating crow, man. You guys were awesome yesterday. I got to give it to you. I mean, top to bottom.
Well,
I mean, the team. What have we said? Right, when this team's clicking, they can beat just about anybody. You know, they were clicking yesterday.
I will say their guard play on defense. I thought that there was a little more hustle on the Creighton side than the Louisville side.
I agree.
And
good analysis.
Maybe like you said, the moment was too big for them. But the only person for Louisville that looked like he came to play was Chucky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He came with a lot of energy, and everybody else kind of seemed to be, I don't know, sleepwalking. But,
yeah. And they were hurt, though, not having Rain Smith at 100%. You could see it right away that he just, that ankle wasn't there for him.
I feel sorry for that guy.
Yeah, it's a warrior.
I hope he's all right.
Yeah, me too. But
and congratulations on UNO. You got
absolutely. Hey.
And go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was a great day for Omaha, man. You guys looked awesome.
Yeah,
you guys played your heart out, and
they
may have had a great accomplishment. How are you feeling about Auburn? You confident? You excited? I mean,
I got to say, I don't know how to read this one.
Me too. We're going to talk about it around like 8:30, so stick around for that. But I'm kind of on the same path as you.
You're on the same path?
I'm on the same path as you. It's a weird one. It's a little weird.
I feel Kalkbrenner can influence a lot of shots.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it can slow him down. But I don't know. Auburn looked pretty good to me. But Creighton looked pretty good too.
They both looked. Thanks for the call, Andrew. If Auburn sleepwalks in the first half, like they did against Alabama State against Creighton, ain't gonna be.
Yeah,
they're not gonna lead by 10 like they did yesterday.
Yeah, you got to show up, and then I think you heard like Auburn talked about that in the post game as well. That you can't show up and start the game this way because if you're absent for the first 10 minutes, you can do that with Alabama State.
Can't do it.
You can't do that to start out with Creighton.
Hey, it was a hell of a day yesterday for Creighton and a bunch of other teams, and still a great day for Omaha and the accomplishment that they had. So, kudos to them. Good day in Omaha. Hopefully it'll be a better day in Omaha when Creighton takes on Auburn and shocks. And, it would be a shock if they were to beat the number one seed in a team that a lot of people have go into the Final Four and go to the national championship. So
that'd be a hell of a path to the Sweet 16.
Hell of a path to the Sweet 16. To come out of that pod would be quite the accomplishment. Hey, we still got another day of basketball. Don't go anywhere. We're going to break it down real quick for you. your first reaction to looking at today's slate of games? Turn on your mic. You got it. Turn on your microphone. Sorry. Maybe I should have gone a little bit slower with the intro.
First time in the studio.
Yeah. No, it's not. It is like your 8th time.
If someone is just tuning in, let them think it's my first time.
You are like a long tenured co-host of the show.
I've been here
like
2 months.
You are like the first call. So have I, buddy. I know how to turn on the microphone.
Yeah, you're over there like.
Hey, how about? Yeah, because you have to. You have to.
On.
All right, this is how the studio works. Hey, how about you answer my sport question? Because we're on a sport radio show.
I'm excited for it.
Is it just a pseudo de facto? I'm just excited for it because it's a lot of basketball, or is it like I'm excited for it because you're actually excited for it?
I'm excited. One part basketball because I love this time of year. Sure. I am all in on this time of year. That said, there are intriguing games for today.
There are a couple
because one, you have multiple Big Ten teams, so I'm already intrigued with where those are going.
Mr. Big Ten, Caleb Henry.
You've got, can Duke come out and just look like, what do they look like? Do you have 100% Cooper Flag? Are you playing? Yeah. Do you just play him some minutes? Like, what does that look like? What is North Carolina?
Yeah, that's the game, right?
That's
the weird
North
one.
Carolina, and granted, like Ole Miss is not a world beater, but what do you get from there? I'm also intrigued by Illinois Xavier. That's another one with a play-in game coming out of there. Because if Illinois has things clicking, I think Illinois is a Sweet 16 team. If they don't have things clicking, they lose by 20 today. Like that's the range for that type of a team. You've also got a Kentucky game in there. Troy was another one of those sexy potential upset picks, 14-3.
Yeah, so especially with Kentucky's history.
So for me, like this is an exciting day of basketball, not just because it's basketball.
Sure. Baylor, Mississippi State will be fine. You know, those two teams aren't great. You know, they've definitely benefited from being in a good conference more so than anything. They're not bad though. They're not bad teams. It'll be a classic like November non-con type deal. You know, it'll be a good game. I think Alabama's going to beat the brakes off of Robert Morris. We'll see how Iowa State looks banged up against Lipscomb. I'm really I think 1:00 is kind of where it picks up for me.
Yeah,
where Colorado State takes on Memphis. We'll get into that breakdown of the game. But Colorado State, a 12 seed, first time since 2017 that a 12 has been favored over a 5. Last time that happened was Middle Tennessee against Minnesota. You're right, Duke. Then at 150, man, they'll beat Mount St. Mary's. Vandy versus St. Mary's.
But you want to see what do they look like? Because think about, I know there's a lot more of a local tie-in with like Auburn, but you want to see what the one looks like.
They're gonna, and that's the same thing with Auburn. Like if you were a Creighton fan yesterday, especially watching that first half of Auburn, you were quite encouraged because you look at the game that you played and you're like, man, if we play that game and they play the game they did, we're gonna win.
Yeah.
GCU versus Maryland is interesting just because Maryland, I mean, look, GCU is a 26-17 with a damn good coach. And Maryland is kind of these 3, 4, 5 seeds, definitely not the strongest that we've seen in the last couple of years, but I feel like Maryland is a team that a lot of people have put their hat on to make a run just because of the roster construction they have. Julian Reese, Derek Queen, two dominant guys down
low. They got
low.
an interesting roster.
You're able to spread it out with Jacoby Gillespie. So it's nothing to sneeze at. Ole Miss UNC is such an interesting
I know
matchup because Ole Miss has a great coach, Chris Beard. In terms of on the court stuff, great coach.
The other thing I love about this time of year is where you're turning across all of the channels, like North Carolina Ole Miss is on TNT.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I'm going to turn it there and catch the end of Gladiator. We'll watch North Carolina Ole Miss. That'll get done. Then Legends of the Fall will come on.
Oh, the Ole Miss North Carolina matchup is interesting because you've seen this Ole Miss team, get their butts whooped by teams in the SEC, but then you've also seen them beat Alabama and Tennessee. And I think a lot of teams in this tournament, the floor can be low for Ole Miss. The ceiling can be incredibly high.
The ceiling is the roof, as they say in North Carolina?
I think only Michael Jordan says that. I don't know if the entirety of North Carolina is talking about how the ceiling apparently is the roof, which, by the way, is the most true statement Michael Jordan has ever said, because the ceiling, in fact, is the roof.
He's a very literal
It's a very literal statement. Troy, Kentucky, we'll see. That's one of those games a little bit like UNC Wilmington versus Texas Tech yesterday, where you kind of assume Kentucky will handle it, but then it gets kind of close.
New coach Kentucky.
Yeah. Good point.
New roster constructed
close
Kentucky.
personal friend Mark Pope. I love when Happer does that. I think it's so funny. New Mexico versus Marquette. All right, so this is where it picks up. So this next 5-game stretch, I'm heavily interested in. New Mexico versus Marquette.
Yeah.
New Mexico, Richard Pitino, good coach. You got Donovan Dent. He's a hell of a player. Marquette's been, once again, another team where the floor has been low and the ceiling has been high. Akron, Arizona. Gary has just kept beating the Akron drum over and over and over again, and they won the MAC, and they've absolutely rolled to end the year. Oklahoma, UConn. Anytime UConn's in the tournament, I just kind of want to see, does the team just get better because they're in March and they're
That's my wife's national champion.
Xavier versus Illinois is, I think, the best game of the day. We'll get into why, but I think Xavier versus Illinois is the best game of the day.
So intriguing.
And then Bryant versus Michigan State. I'm not saying that Bryant's going to win the game, but I think it could get interesting.
They're not.
And then we'll end the day with a decent Liberty versus Oregon game. So that's your preview for Friday. We'll dive a little bit deeper. We got the big board here, so I'll break down the big board with a couple of games that I have that I want to bet. But we are going to roll the table of what happened yesterday and was what was kind of a mid-Thursday. And then later on, we'll talk about how some college head coaches are saying the silent things a little bit out loud. You'll hear all that coming up here on Gary and Matt. Oh, Hey, yesterday was fun. Right? It was fun. Wasn't great. It was fun. Just basketball in general. Like,
Okay.
Could have been better. Didn't have a signature moment yesterday. That kind of sucked. Like I'm not asking for like 3 buzzer beaters a day. Okay. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I am looking for a little bit more of competition. I am looking for a little bit more of closer games. I am looking for at least one magical moment. We did not have that yesterday, unfortunately.
Well, the first half of the slate of games, because there was that little bit of a lull between the first half, like the early slate and the late slate. First half, they kind of all just pulled away.
So
you know, they all kind of pulled away. Second half slate though, like Michigan had to hold off a buzzer beater that would have sent it to overtime, clanked off the back of the rim.
Well, so we're just breaking this down here.
But outside of that, nothing really came down to that very last possession.
It was competitive. I mean, Creighton was competitive, and we got Doug on the line. Doug, hang on for 2 seconds. We're gonna break down Thursday, and then we'll get to you. Creighton was competitive for 9 minutes, 8 minutes?
Yeah, before that run really tore it open.
Before that run. I mean, Purdue and High Point got a little close with 7, 8-ish minutes to go, but then Purdue just executed down the stretch, and it was very clear what team had played in March before and what team hadn't played in March. And it just, at the end of the day, it just really comes down to, March really just comes down to, can you clear the boards? Can you make your free throws? Can you hit the big shots down the stretch? I mean, that's what a lot of it comes down to. Wisconsin versus Montana was close for a second, at least to start the game. I think it bled into a little bit of that second half, and then eventually, they pulled away. Houston versus SIUE. My apologies to you.
No.
Fighting Caleb Henry.
It was a beautiful game to start. Great set and a dunk, and you were yelling, "Please stop the count." Unfortunately, they didn't. They played the rest of the 40 minutes, and it was all Houston. Houston looked really good. Arkansas, Kansas, it was just a Kansas, how can you mess this up over the last few minutes and every single opportunity you have? How bad of an investment can you make Hunter Dickinson look?
That game got close, and Texas Tech and UNC Wilmington got really, really close, too, and then Texas Tech had that run at the end of the game. NC State, McNeese, you see that joke there?
Yeah, I got you.
Probably going to end up in the ACC. They kicked the crap out of Clemson, and that game somehow became a 2-point game, which is wild beyond belief. Well, that wasn't really.
They were up 4, and then there was a dunk, and so it finishes up 2 points.
Clemson extended that game,
but it was 20. It was 20 plus, and McNeese almost just gave it away
to begin the game, and it just.
And they had. Do you know how many points they had in the last 1 minute?
Probably
14. Yeah, 14 in the last minute, 13 in the first half.
McNeese, especially in that first half, looked like a Division I team with how big and athletic
they played,
and they played hard, especially on the defensive end. Good for Will Wade, who will end up going to NC State and probably end up bringing some of those guys with him. We'll actually get into a conversation about that coming up next after we're done with this breakdown. Gonzaga. So, I've talked about this yesterday. The Zags are a weird team where, first off, they got a ton of NCAA tournament experience with Mark Few, but all of their games when they played power teams were within 8, whether it be them losing or winning, all of them. And they played a pretty difficult power schedule. They didn't just play tomato cans. And so you knew that team was pretty good. And because those games they played against high quality teams were so close, they were 9th yesterday in KenPom. After yesterday's win, though, they're now up to 7th in KenPom, yet they're an 8th seed just because they lost to Santa Clara, and they lost to Oregon State, and they lost to St. Mary's twice this season until they finally got the monkey off their back and beat St. Mary's in their conference championship game.
Georgia, by the way,
that game started on a 27-3 run. That game started on a really, really long run. McNeese started on a really, really long run. And then Creighton got on a run and never got close. And Purdue stiff-armed High Point, and Wisconsin stiff-armed Montana State. And it was cool to see Alabama State at one point leading in the first half, but then Auburn kind of slept walked into like a 12-0 run to end the half to take a 10-point lead, and then it wasn't really overly competitive from that point on.
Georgia, by the way, 0-4 in their last 4 tournament appearances, have not won a game since 2002.
So
Gonzaga, on the other hand, though, multiple Sweet 16, like a Sweet 16 streak going on, and so does Houston. So that's a really interesting matchup this weekend.
2 massive takeaways I have heading into tomorrow, which is funny enough. These teams play tomorrow. It seems like just like they played 2 seconds ago, right?
I love it.
Drake looked damn good. Now, I know
it was a good matchup for them, I thought.
And I know that it got close at the very end, and their offense kind of stalled out for a second. Missouri was able to close that gap within 2 until they just kind of took over at the end of the game. Shout out Ben McCollum. They grinded Missouri to the studs. Grinded. And they are just a team, man, they are fast. The shot making wasn't totally like 54% from the field, but they definitely can go on droughts. It's a team that, that can go a while without scoring. And their offense is so unique in the fact that like everything comes down to the wire. Everything comes down to the last couple of seconds in that shot clock. But they are smart. The sets that they run are great. Ben McCollum is a basketball nut, and it just kind of seems like he's playing chess out there. I'm so impressed with Drake in transition. Like they are, when they get in transition and they start running, I mean, it just seems like they know where everybody is at without looking at them, and they just make the right play every single time.
And by the way, looking at tomorrow with Drake, Texas Tech, far and away the lowest point total.
Oh yeah,
127.5.
We'll get to the spreads and point totals.
But you talk about grinding teams out and making it your pace.
Oh my God,
that's what you're seeing for Drake. And I mean, it's not like Texas Tech has ever played lightning fast.
And then BYU, a team that I picked to go to the Final Four. Richie Saunders, 6 of 12 from the field, 16 points. Igor Demin also looked really, really good as well, 15.6 of 11 from the field. They shot the lights out, 50% in total. They only made 7 threes. They didn't have to make a lot. They were physical within the paint. They played a damn good VCU team. They were only a 2.5-point favorite, and they kind of controlled that pace the entirety of the game. They were on a heater. I don't think it got enough run about the fact that they were winners of, I think it was 9 of their last 10, and they had beat multiple ranked teams on the way to doing that. Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State twice. Beat VCU yesterday. That's a team that I think when we look at the teams who were stepping out into Saturday, we're like, damn, they had a really good performance. When they had, they had a really good performance, and can they parlay that into tomorrow, and can they parlay that into the rest of the tournament? I think the 2 teams that come to the top of my head are Drake and BYU. I am so glad I never have to watch UC San Diego play basketball ever again. That was painful. As someone who had a 3-leg parlay and then +2 on a ticket, I am so glad. It was painful watching that team play offense. There was no movement. There was like barely any sets. There was no like nuance. And maybe I'm spoiled from watching Creighton basketball for the last 3 months and just seeing how they operate and move and how every movement has an intention.
If you're looking for offensive movement in sets, yes, you are spoiled for watching Creighton.
So maybe that's the case. But like the dribble, hold, dribble, hold. Move this way, back out to 3, shoot the 3, look the rebound, dribble, hold, pass, screen, dribble, hold, 3-point. Like, I couldn't see. And then on top of that, and it made Michigan look bad. You're sitting there because UC San Diego actually played some pretty good defense. You're like, Michigan, how the hell is this team playing? This type of offense, and you aren't leading by 20.
Yeah, you're not taking any advantage of this.
No. So it made 0 sense to me why that game was so close. And then there's 19 seconds left. Okay. And game is within 3. You have enough time to extend the game. You have enough time to run down, go ahead, grab get to the free throw line, get to the bucket, like give yourself like a chance.
Take advantage of the multitude of seconds
there's
have.
20 seconds left on the clock. And what do they decide? And
instead,
and let's not I'm not going to act like Eric Olson doesn't know what he's doing. Like I think he, other than the fact that I just don't like how his team runs offense, like I think he's actually a pretty good coach and did a good job yesterday. But I know the one-on-ones were working with I think Happich and Golden. Like I understand that was the bread and butter in the second half. With 19 seconds left in a 3-point game, the shot is not the shot is not a contested 3-pointer over a 7-footer from about 30 feet away. That is not the shot in a 20-second 3-point game. The shot is, hey, let's get a pick and roll rolling to going towards the basket. If the defense collapses on us and then we're able to get a good 3-point look, then hey, we'll take it and we'll try and tie the game. But when in doubt, when you're trying to extend possessions, just get to the damn hoop. And they didn't, and they blew it.
Maximize your opportunities. Don't just leave it on one unless you think that one is amazing. And they had another timeout they could have called too. So they'll take that into the offseason.
And there was another timeout later in that game, I think, with like 4 minutes left, where they just let the ball sit on the ground, and then eventually there was that lane violation called where they could have called that timeout to kept possession. Just a weird game. It was just a weird day in general.
Like, it would have been nice if you could have just eliminated both Michigan and UC San Diego.
We didn't even get to the UCLA, Utah State ass whooping. Like that wasn't even competitive for a second. So I'm just hoping today that, and there are some really interesting and just good matchups in general that we have. But yesterday was just a bit of a meh. Some teams, Texas A&M, like that Yale Texas A&M game was entertaining. At the same time, Yale just wasn't able to go on that 8-0 run when they were down 9, what it seemed like the entire second half, to really extend that game. And there were moments where Texas A&M just looked like every time the ball went up during that A&M Yale game, it was like if you were a Yale fan, you were holding your breath. You're like, man, I hope they can get this rebound. It was just very clear, and it was just like also too, time Yale got to the bucket and they tried to put up a layup, there would just be a flying Aggie coming in, just blocking that ball. Like it was an impressive performance, I think, overall from Buzz Williams. Other than Drake and like I said, BYU, who I thought had really, really good days where you can maybe peg them as, hey, these teams actually look like Final Four contending teams outside of the 1s and 2 seeds. I think Texas A&M is right around that range.
Smaller sample size, and you did have the North Carolina blowout. But was the Final Four first 4 more entertaining for you than the first half of the first round?
Yes, it was. It was. Because that Alabama State St. Francis game was awesome.
That was a tremendous way to start everything.
And that Xavier Texas game was great as well. And then you had the drama and thrill
with the American game.
Well, but like the drama and thrill of Xavier being down by, what was it? 13?
Well, in that one, yeah.
Yeah, and they end up coming back and winning that. And just the pure emotion from the entire Musketeer team and the Alabama State team. Yeah. I would probably, if we were choosing games, I would have taken the first 4 out of the first 4 games of the actual NCAA, or the round of 64, the NCAA tournament. But neither here nor there. I just want a buzzer beater today. That's all I want.
You just want a buzzer beater.
That's all Papa wants for Christmas. I just want an buzzer beater.
But buzzer beater end of game or going into half? Because Chucky Hepburn was allowed to dribble directly into a 3 at the end of the first half.
Yeah, that was bad.
Uncontested.
Yeah, that was one of the very rare brain fart moments.
I was just like, did you guys stop playing?
Defense. Yeah, forgot to mention that. And also too, like the upsets yesterday, like McNeese upset Clemson. That was a 12-5, right? But that wasn't like that wasn't a thrilling upset. That game was kind of done for 97% of it until you looked up at your TV and you're like, oh, damn.
If you go by seeds, Creighton, Louisville. Okay, so that's a 9-8.
Sure.
You had McNeese Clemson with your 12-5.
And then you had Drake, Missouri. But Drake was in control a lot of that game until when Missouri cut it to 2 with a couple minutes to go in the second half.
You had Arkansas, Kansas, which a lot of people were out on Kansas anyway.
Yeah.
None of those are games where people are necessarily surprised.
No. Like, a lot of people picked Drake to beat Missouri, and there were plenty of people who, after last year and being disappointed, picked McNeese to beat Clemson. Jimbo.
Yes, Matt.
Are you happy Kansas season is over?
I really don't care. I've been saying that all week. Yeah, it had zero effect on me whatsoever.
Mercifully into the offseason?
Yeah.
I was more engaged with my morning bowel movement more than the game. It was like, it happened. It's over.
I love you.
I love you too.
I don't mean to hammer you down or anything like that. Where does this rank in like most disappointing seasons?
Belmont,
as a fan, like just not as
I'm
Kansas.
the wrong person to ask. It is what it is.
Yeah, preseason number 1.
Polls are overrated early in the season.
$4 million roster. Hunter Dickinson ends up winning 1 NCAA tournament game.
You spend money better.
In the Jayhawk era. This is kind of, and I think
that's one of the things about when you talk about NIL budgets for programs, they can be spent incorrectly. It's not always we only had 3, had 5, they had 9. You can have the highest NIL or top 10 NIL and spend it incorrectly. The pieces don't fit together, someone regresses, and you're spending as much on one guy as other teams have in their entire budget, type of a thing.
I
think we don't bring up that part of the conversation enough when we talk about this team doesn't have as much money as X team.
We haven't separated the having money and spending money part of NIL, because in the MLB, just because you spend the most money every single year does not mean you're going to win the World Series, right?
Actually, most years it means you don't.
Yes. Same thing with the NFL, same thing with basketball. Just because you are spending the absolute most cash on your team does not mean your team is necessarily worth that or is going to play to that worth. Kansas found that out this year. Indiana.
Give you an idea. I was more excited about the Omaha game last night. I was like, let's get this over with. I want to watch the main thing. This is my feel-good story.
Isn't that the crappy thing, though, about your team this year? It wasn't necessarily that they were...
The crappy thing is we went 5-7 during football season, but okay.
It wasn't necessarily, though, that you guys were like, bad. You still were a 7 seed. Like, you still were like a slightly respectable seed. It was... You were just unlikable.
They were
like you
good.
Just did not.
They were never good.
You just did not like to watch them play.
Yeah, they were never good. Many of the guys hate each other. Self's face said it all, and he cannot wait to purge the roster of many of these guys and go buy some new players.
I think Self was checked out by Christmas with this roster.
I mean, Self actually did a pretty good job implementing that zone yesterday.
Oh yeah, that did a little bit
toward the end of the second half.
I saw a stat yesterday.
They couldn't make those shots to win the game.
Every time Kansas has been preseason number 1, they haven't made the Sweet 16.
Is that true? Wow.
See, and this is my whole opinion on polls. Every time they've been postseason number 1, they've been national champions. So
yeah, that's the one.
That's what. We're number 1. What does that get you in November? Not a damn thing. You get a T-shirt. You get a banner. We were ranked number 1 in November of what? It doesn't matter. People like to pump their chest out, and this isn't a Kansas thing. This is everybody.
Well, yeah.
Every year it's like, we're number 1. Great. That doesn't mean a damn thing. Go win the national championship in April. You know who was number 1 the past 2 years? The Connecticut Huskies. I don't care who was number 2. I don't care who was in the polls. And the same with this one. These guys weren't winning a championship. In fact, I'm surprised it was that close last night. I expected them to lose, and they did so. I do feel bad for KJ Adams, so that sucks.
Yeah.
It's his last game, and
yeah, he went down toward the end there.
And the fact that they have some of their fans, they were cheering on that injury says a lot about their basketball fan base, which, my whole deal is I used to help run a message board with that. So I saw the very worst of the fan base, and it changes how you feel and see about everything. I don't have to tell people about that here. I mean, we have 1 billion message boards for Nebraska football, and you see the worst of the worst. And you have to separate yourself from that to see it. And so I see it from a different perspective because I've worked in college athletics. Yeah. I see what the coaches do. I see what goes into it. And I can also, and I know Bill Self. And so I can tell kind of what's going on. And plus, yes, I do have boots on the ground there. So I do have things that have been told to me about that stuff. And so it was no surprise.
But I mean, you could see it in the way that they play. Hey, Arkansas shoots 54% from the field in the first half. They shoot 30%.
Yeah.
from the field. In
I
the
had
second half.
someone text from home last night, like, "Oh, are you upset? Are you worried?" I was like, "I'm more worried about my blood sugar than I am about this damn game."
I think that was how
It's
a
a
lot of people
basketball
felt
game.
about it too.
You know why I'm
67
upset? Okay,
they
you'll
had a
understand this, Matt.
67 They had a 67-64 lead with less than 5 minutes to play.
I would have won $100 if it wasn't for Hunter Dickinson. So it is completely symbolic that he screwed up my
I got my only ticket from the board, by the way.
So
yeah, no, that was. I mean, you were at the point I was watching that game. They got up 3 with 5 minutes to play. And
I'm more excited about your sandwich today.
You're sitting there. I am excited about my sandwich too. You're sitting there thinking like, man, is like, when's Kansas going to put this away? Like, when are they going to put the nail in the coffin? Like, you're like, all right, like, where's the Dickinson shot coming? Where's the Mayo shot coming? Like, where are any of these guys who paid an exuberant amount of money to come and close out this game? And just like the entirety of the season, it just wasn't.
I can tell you where the KU fan base was because my dad was at KU playing baseball at the time of Danny Manning and the Miracles.
That's right.
This is the first year
I learned this when Caleb and I met.
This is the first year that I can remember my dad not texting me either before a game or during a game for Kansas in the NCAA tournament.
Same with my friends.
Just nobody even wanted to be there. They're just the game's happening. Okay, cool. If they win,
I was glad
if they don't, whatever.
Bad day for the SEC, even worse day for the ACC.
Good.
But it was a great day for the Big East and the Creighton Blue Jays. Doug, how you feeling, man?
Happy.
I don't know. I fell asleep while I was on hold for 35 minutes.
Oh, my God. You're on hold for 20. Doug, we got a show to do. I'm sorry. We had a lot. You came in at the exact wrong time. You came in.
No, there is never a wrong time for Doug.
After we did a Creighton Blue Jay recap. But now I got you here, Doug. I told you that. I literally said to hang on. I'm kidding. How are you?
Yeah,
How
I
you
was. I wasn't confident going into the game yesterday.
I said that yesterday.
And Caleb, you made a comment, and I'd want to follow up on it, that Louisville just prepped for Auburn. Are you just speculating that, or do you know that?
No, I don't. That's more tongue in cheek in that it looked like, especially as the game started to tilt towards Creighton and there was no punch back for Louisville, that it was, they didn't prep for this case of Creighton getting hot and Jemiah Neal going nuts in the mid-range.
Okay. No, I just wanted to being that you're now, do you consider yourself, Caleb, a fan or a journalist? As far as if you're choosing you have to choose between the two, how would you characterize yourself for Nebraska basketball? It's important for this next question I'm going to ask you.
It's a little bit of both because my journalist job is a lot more fun when the team is winning.
Yeah.
Like when there's success and there's things to write about. So I would say I definitely cheer for Nebraska, but if you read any of my stuff, it's from a journalist standpoint. So it depends on where I'm at. For the sake of this question, I'll say I'm a fan.
Okay, so but you're not an anti-Creighton. You're not an anti-Creighton, anti-Jaster guy, right?
I will be on social media because it's fun to see people's reactions, but in reality, no, I'm fine with Creighton making a run.
Okay,
he does it for the bit.
Yeah.
This game yesterday brought up one of the most perplexing things that I can think of. What is the deal with Chucky Hepburn? And let me say what I think he's a damn good player, and I just can't believe that he somehow couldn't have ended up. And I know why initially he was gonna commit to Miles, but why he didn't come back, or he didn't. I mean, what would Creighton and or Nebraska look like? Is particularly Nebraska.
I mean, they would be better. They would be better, Doug. They would be a better team. I mean, this is. I don't know. I mean,
they'd be an NCAA lock.
They try. Yeah, sure. I mean, there was efforts to be done to get to get these guys, whether be from the Creighton perspective or the Nebraska perspective, if not only in high school when they're coming out of high school, but also when they were both in the transfer portal. Like they tried, just other teams went out and got them, and they paid big money for them. And Louisville ended up being the exact right spot for Chucky. So I know what you're saying. Like here's a hometown guy and. man, it would be great for him to play for the hometown teams, but he found the best situation for him. And, he got paid for it. And he looked like the only guy who wanted to be out there on the floor yesterday. And he was by far the best player on a team that ended up making it to the ACC championship game.
I just think that it almost seems like he's pissed.
Well, I mean, it's working for him, so good for him.
Yeah, so sometimes you just have to play that way.
When he plays Nebraska, or he plays Creighton, he's like playing pissed off.
Maybe he is, but he's a. If you've watched him that the entire season, he's a pit bull, man. He's awesome. He's just really
and he
good
played
player.
a lot freer this year in a way that he didn't like when he was at Wisconsin. It was good to see him in that.
He actually
system.
look, he averaged 9 points last year at Wisconsin. He averaged 16 points this year in Louisville,
and almost 6 assists.
We brought on Mike Rutherford from the Card Chronicle and talked about the fact that Chucky Hepburn has become like a figure amongst, kids who love Louisville basketball because of the run that he went on this year, because they hadn't made the tournament in 6 years before Kelsey and him showed up. So, we can look back and say, man, it would have been nice for the kid who was born in Omaha to play for Omaha or play in the state of Nebraska, but he found the best situation for him. He's a damn good player. And it's, we've done the song and dance a little bit too much, I think.
Well,
they tried.
I mean, you guys are kind of making my point in a way, in that he should have never gone to Wisconsin in the first place.
But he made his decision, and there were efforts to bring him, to keep him in state, and he decided what was best for him. Sometimes I'll just say this right now. Sometimes just because a guy is born in Nebraska doesn't mean that it's automatically the best decision for them to stay in state. There are some people who it's good for them and they want to go out of state and they want to explore other things. And I'm not going to speak on behalf of Chucky, but and I don't know if that was necessarily the case for him, but I just think in this regard, the guy went out. He didn't play in Nebraska and he didn't play for Creighton, and he had one hell of a college basketball career that he should be incredibly proud about. So, it's just at this point, it's too far gone,
Yeah, I think there's some backstory there.
I'm sure there is.
And I've been told, and I don't know, Caleb, you make a comment because you follow Nebraska. Didn't he say he was going to come to Nebraska until Miles got fired?
Well, whenever there's coaching changes, it doesn't matter if somebody was coming or not coming. Whenever there's coaching changes, and you saw everything get completely thrown open when it was the transition from Tim Miles to Fred Hoiberg, but also so much of that is on Nebraska or any other program to make a place enticing enough that a young man or a young woman doesn't decide to go somewhere else. There are 13 former Nebraska high school players playing in this NCAA tournament, only a handful of them for Creighton and Omaha. And obviously we see that there's not really any playing at Nebraska. It's up to the schools to make that enticing, but also as someone who grew up in Nebraska, went to school out of state, sometimes that's just the best decision, and that's the way it works out.
Thanks for the call, Doug. Look, it's just one of those things where, yes, you would love the kids who are talented who grew up in the state to stay in the state, right? And to be Cornhuskers or be Blue Jays or, heck, even be Mavericks, right? And then they deserve to be in the conversation in that regard too. Like, you would love that. Doesn't always work out. Now, if you want to look at it and the entire 1,000-mile view and the fact that there were a lot of these guys out there and none of them came to Nebraska, your Frankie Fiddler, your John Tonje, your Hunter Salas, your, Chucky Hepburn.
You put all four of those guys on Nebraska this year, and they're a 5 seed. Okay,
so you want to get into that? Like, how couldn't they get any of? How could you not get any of these guys?
Is it the coaching? Is it the NIL? What is it?
Specifically to one guy, you know what? Chucky went away. He didn't play in state. It worked out pretty damn well for him. Hey,
first team all ACC Defensive Player of the Year.
One team that definitely is in pain after yesterday is Minnesota. After watching Pharrell Payne for Texas A&M have an absolute banner day. I remember watching that guy play twice against Nebraska. He looked like a stud. Hey, we're in a changing world of college athletics, and a lot of times that falls on the shoulder of the athletes. But funny enough, the last couple of days, it's actually fallen on the shoulders of the coaches.
Ooh.
We'll talk about that coming up next. How'd you do on the bracket?
I missed a few.
Jim?
I have to check it, but I got McNeese right.
Attaboy.
But I got Yo wrong.
They jumped on him. That 2-3 zone yesterday that McNeese implemented, apparently Will Wade said that they had been saving that all year.
And I got Michigan because, see, I told you, everybody was hammering San Diego. I was like, that's not going to happen.
The amount, do you know how many texts I got yesterday telling me I told you so with UC San Diego? Which, by the way, you did tell me so because that was such a painful game to watch. By the way, remember when I kept saying Aniwa Tate Jones is going to be this absolute superstar, and then he ended up fouling out with like 8 minutes to go in the game.
Hey, you said the name beautifully. That's all I care about.
And I've been on it with the pronunciation.
Oh yeah,
I've been getting better.
That's your best one.
By far. I'm telling you, when we get to the UFC, the Russian or Georgian or UFC fighters, I'm really good with those fights. Habib Nurmagomedov.
I got 10 right yesterday. Is what
I went 13-3.
13.
Give me
nice.
my flowers.
Now.
I know what I'm doing.
Now, here's the thing. When you look at that, and this isn't just us reading off our brackets.
No, we're not going to do that.
But when you're looking at it, like if you're feeling good or feeling bad after day one, what matters is if you missed any, how far did you have them going?
Yeah.
Like my wife was in first for much of the day yesterday, but she had Clemson winning it all.
Yeah, no.
So I told her she should not feel good.
No.
I told her going into the tournament she should not feel good about her bracket because it looks like hot garbage. But for me, I'm missing one Sweet 16.
Yeah, I'm missing 2.
So I missed 6 games yesterday, but only 1 in the Sweet 16. So it's okay. Do you have your Sweet 16 intact? Obviously, you want your Final Four and your national champion. But how do you maximize points? That's where you can start to feel good and positive going into the rest of the weekend.
You definitely are looking at how many points available you have. What's your max score at this point? Unfortunately for me, my sister is at the top of the leaderboard of the family bracket, of like the 22-person family bracket. And she is going to rub it in like a pain in the butt if she ends up winning that whole thing. So we're kind of crossing our fingers and making sure that, that is the problem with you and me and people who are like, journalists and whatnot. Jimmy, I'm sure you fall into this as well. Like when you get put in the brackets, you're expected to do well because you like literally report on sports and talk about sports for your life. So it's heavy as the hat that wears the crown in that regard.
And some of it is
my sister. That'd be absolutely terrible. Because there's got to be like a hierarchy of the worst people to lose to in your NCAA tournament bracket. And I think your sister or your sibling definitely is at the top of that list.
Yeah,
that and Jan from accounting, who hasn't watched one basketball game all year, who doesn't even know who Auburn is.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that.
Or Dennis.
there's definitely a little bit of that.
There's a little bit of that. There's always the animosity there, kind of. And also too, like I don't know, the whole. I feel like brackets are such a waste of money. I wasted way too much money on brackets yesterday. I'm like, I'm probably not going to win any of this back. Like at least when I bet on these tickets, there's a part of me that's like, hey, there's like a 47% chance I'm going to end up cashing this back out. I know when I sent all the Venmos yesterday, and there was about 7 of them, I was like, there's no way any of this cash is coming back. It's an absolute crapshoot.
I surprised my wife yesterday.
How'd you
because
Jimmy had to hold his tongue there.
Because she has at her work, they do a bracket contest, and your significant others can enter it too.
Yeah,
so it's $5 a bracket, whatever. So she has her bracket, which is hot garbage, and I have my bracket, which I think will do okay. Good. And so I sent her with cash and everything, and she gets it submitted. It's fine. And she asked me later, she goes, so I'm scared to ask, like, how many of these do you enter every year? Like, how much money do you spend on this every year?
Yeah.
And I said, I have spent, for the two of us, $10 this year.
Yeah.
And she goes, what? I go, I just don't do the money on brackets in the same way I did probably a decade plus ago. I just don't. I enter the free groups that you can jump into.
Yeah, no.
But for the most part, and sometimes I'll do something with my old college buddies. We might do $5 on a bracket. I'm not putting the money on the brackets.
Yeah, that's not. I put money on the brackets.
I prefer
on the brackets.
I want to look. I want to look more
Mike's
at.
Be concerned about me in the comments.
Individual games. Where's the money line? Where's the points?
Yeah.
If I'm going to put $5-10 on something, I'm much more confident in that.
We'll get into that a little bit later. Hey, something has been happening over the last couple of days. Coaches are being very boisterous about what is going on in their careers. And you know what? I'm a fan of it. I'm a really big fan of it. Will Wade was asked at a press conference about 2 days ago, hey, have you been contacted by NC State? He goes, yes, I have. Just straight up. He's like, yes, I've been talking to them. It came out not too shortly after that he is going to be the next head coach of NC State. And I think that shocked a lot of people. It was like, wow, all right, we just asked, because typically you get the, that Texas A&M coach who ended up going to Texas. I'm not leaving here. I love it here. This is incredible. How dare you ask me that question? We're focused on, we can control what we can control. We have the guys
24 hours later.
Yes, you end up on a different team. Will Wade goes, no, dude. No, I'm probably going to NC State. It was announced a little bit later that he is indeed going to NC State. He then talked about it again yesterday, and he goes, we're not worried about any of that stuff. I mean, here's the thing. We can sit here and lie about it, but it is what it is. Our guys aren't worried about it. I ain't worried about it. None of our administration's worried about it. Nobody's worried about it. We've been honest with everybody. It's great. Keep winning. Keep going. He still went on to just, talk a little bit later about how he's very transparent with even recruits that, hey, after this year at McNeese, I'm going Power 5, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can come with me. And it's an interesting aspect. The other way to think about it too is that it's almost as if like the McNeese guys, his players who played great yesterday, are like auditioning and are like trying out a little bit to be brought with him to NC State. And if you were NC State and you saw yesterday's game against, McNeese versus Clemson, you're like, man, they just beat the second highest seed in the division that Will Wade is about to coach in. This is great. Not only just for Will Wade and the fact that he's coming here and he's getting this publicity as a good coach. It's good for us because we want some of those guys to play for NC State. It'll be good for the conference.
Isn't that what you're doing if you're any of the players for High Point, or maybe not Yale, but UC San Diego or any of these mid-major programs? If you're in the tournament and things go well and you're, say, a sophomore.
Oh, sure.
And you're saying, hey, if I do something here, that could give me an opportunity when the portal opens later this month. The players are already doing that. Now, to your point, what Will Wade is talking about, in that he's being so open with it, there is a fine line on that. He could have been open with that, and the locker room fell apart. But obviously, he understood the roster he had. He understood the locker room that he had, that those guys were all going to be open with it. They probably all had the conversations before anyway and about the business of what is college athletics. So it works out for him, but it just as easily could have fallen apart if he didn't have that strong of a locker room.
Business is the business.
Yeah.
Like there's no more kind of dilly-dallying around the fact that dollars are being passed out in the hundreds of thousands to millions to college players across multiple sports. Okay, there's no dilly-dallying around that. There's no dilly-dallying around the fact that college sports essentially at this point is pro sports without any regulation, that it is what we continue to call the wild, wild west. And I think that Will Wade, in the face of all of these questions and secrecy, has decided to come out and say, you know what, I'm just going to go the other way, and we're going to stop acting like this is all taboo. This stuff happens. We all know this stuff happens. There's nothing against, or no one's been punished for this stuff happening, at least as of late. So this is what it's going to be. Hey, guys, I'm not coaching here next year, but there's room on the roster. I can bring you with me. And like in that regard, to go and play Power 5 basketball, to make money doing it, that's great motivation. That's a great additional motivation in the NCAA tournament as well. And then you look at Kevin Willard, who I think saw what happened with Will Wade and saw the transparency he said, and he said, you know what? In the face of a question of, hey, Kevin Willard, are you interested in the Villanova job? He just said plain out, well, this is my situation, right? And he talked about how he was worried about rev share. He's worried about the money that Maryland is going to get, that if he's going to sign an extension, that he isn't just going to look at the dollar amount and say, oh, I want to make this amount of money for this amount of years. I'm going to sign it. I'm going to go. No. He needs the Maryland Terrapins basketball future to be instated. He needs it to be established.
Here are the things we need for the program to be successful.
Here's how this program is going to continue to grow. This is what I require from you. And then just said straight out, yeah, Damon Evans, my athletic director, he's probably going to SMU. And everyone's like, all right, cool. I guess like there was rumors about it happening, but he just straight out said it. No. My AD probably won't even be here. So it's kind of hard for me to even negotiate a deal with a guy who I know won't be my boss or probably won't be my boss next year. And so it's a really interesting dynamic that I'm a fan of, because this stuff is happening and we have to act as if it's not happening. It is happening. People are being tampered with, and the quicker we acknowledge it, the more steps we can take to making it more efficient. So shout out Will Wade. I don't know if he did it to be like the white knight of college basketball. I think he just did it because that's who he is. But Kevin Willard followed his suit, making headlines. I like the honesty. I like the honesty. Hey, I like the rest of the show that we have too. We have a good rest of the show. We still got to look at my big board. I got a couple really good picks. Had a pretty good day yesterday. We'll talk about that. We'll break down some matchups that are happening today. We'll break down some matchups that are happening tomorrow. Talk about matchups we want to see in the future. And we got Mike Schaefer coming up at 9:00 and Matt Verzal coming up at 9:20. That's their lineup, which is powered by the Roofers at John Higgins Weather Guard. Don't go anywhere. Listen to Gary and Matt.
It's tournament time, and when your favorite stars score buckets in said tournament, we're alley-ooping you away to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Hey, do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? Well, you can, and you can with Underdog. They've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from, so it's not just the college basketball. You can do pro, and baseball season's coming. Don't roll your eyes. You can actually do quite well with baseball. That's what I did last year, especially during October. You can play with as little as $1. And if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into 1,000 just with your hoops knowledge. This week on Underdog, this weekend, what do you think? I'm all about the tournament. Ryan Kalkbrenner won me money yesterday. Hunter Dickinson lost it. It's the way it goes. So let's see what the Jays can do for me tomorrow. Shout out Stephen Ashworth. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using promo code ZONE to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on all the fun, and when you sign up with promo code ZONE, you can claim your special offer today. Get up to $1,000 in bonus cash upon first deposit. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit ncpgambling.org.
Hey, it's not just the men's NCAA basketball tournament, but the women's basketball tournament begins today. The Nebraska Cornhuskers and Alexis Markowski, along with Britt Prince, will take on, funny enough, the Louisville Cardinals today at 5 o'clock. That game will be on ESPN. Nebraska, a 10 seed, Louisville, a 7 seed. And then tomorrow at 6:15, in what you're hoping Jim Flannery did in calling Amy Williams to talk about some scouting reports, because the Creighton Blue Jays take on the Illinois Illini tomorrow at 6:15. That will be right here on the station, I believe. Nebraska beat Illinois, part of that reference, in the Big Ten Conference Tournament. So good luck to both of those teams. Caleb, I know that you've been following Nebraska women's basketball, and you write a lot for them. When I used to work with you, I used to write a lot of Nebraska women's basketball with you. I know you've been on that beat. Give me the breakdown, kid. What are we? I mean,
kid, I'm like 15 years older than you.
This is a big game though, because Alexis Markowski is one of the greatest, definitely up there in terms of Nebraska women's basketball players of all time, and this could end up being her final game in the red and white.
Well, she starts as a freshman, and she's been a consistent starter ever since then. She has the program record for double doubles. She's far and away the team leader. Like that's what it's been.
She's been that way for
and she was a hometown kid.
Yeah.
You know, grew up there, was a legacy. Her dad played Andy Markowski for the Huskers.
Yeah.
So, yes, this is a big game for the end of Alexis Markowski's career. Like, how do you define
and
the
hopefully
end of it?
this isn't the end, right? I mean, big games, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean is, does this extend and you get another win in the tournament, because they got a win last year for the first time in a long time. This is now 3 out of 4 years for Amy Williams' squad, and the 4 years of Alexis Markowski being there, of being in the NCAA tournament. So but it is a tough matchup. When you look at this Louisville squad, they had a first-team All-ACC player, Jada Curry, who missed the conference tournament, expected to be back. So what do you get there with Curry coming back? Averages 13 points a game. They've also got a really good freshman in Roberts, who averages 13 points a game. And if Louisville is hitting things well, they do a good job on the offensive glass. What Nebraska does poorly is rebound on the defensive end.
Yeah.
So on that aspect, it's a poor matchup. On the other end, though, Louisville doesn't play great defense. Nebraska's offense is its bread and butter, especially the three-point line.
Okay.
When you've got Logan Nisley hitting, when you have Callan Hake hitting, obviously when you're looking at the roster and you might look at some previews, Natalie Potts is still listed. She hasn't played in months.
Sure.
Allison Widener hasn't played. Those would be two really key pieces, but Jessica Petrie has really stepped up as kind of a 3-4 spot. Amaya Hargrove inside has really stepped up, and I've been really impressed with Petra Bojan inside. What she's able to do out of Croatia, true freshman, tall girl inside, really long arms. When she gets a hook shot going, it's really impressive. Defensively, she can alter shots. She gives Alexis Markowski that wiggle room to go take a breather.
Sure.
Which is really nice to have.
And because you got to get to the point now in talking about Alexis Markowski's career where she has played a lot of minutes and has been required to do a lot of things. And
nice thing, though, they had 2 weeks off. So are you going to come out rested or rusty? So for either team, that's what you're going to be concerned about. And for Nebraska being so 3-point reliant, you hope you're coming out rested, because if you come out rusty, it could be an 0 for 36 game. Win this game, most likely taking on host for the pod in Haley Van Lith and TCU. Get by that game, you probably have Notre Dame waiting. It is a tough path, but this is a really good Amy Williams coaching job for this season to get to the tournament with the injuries. Excited to see what happens against the Cardinals at 5 this afternoon.
It's just a really good year of women's college basketball. You got a lot of stars, a lot of teams, a lot of headlines.
The Big Ten.
Watkins, USC, UCLA. You got South Carolina, UConn. Hey, it'll be a good tune. It's going to be a great bar weekend. Isn't this what it always is?
Yes.
The NCAA is just a great bar weekend. Hey, do you know what it also is? It's also a great gambling weekend. We'll give you some picks coming up next year on Gary and Matt. There's no cups in the office right now, unfortunately, so I can't have my coffee.
You're better than me. I would have just gotten up and left at that
I
point.
would have. I should be home in bed right now. I'm actually. I've.
Can you just drink out of the pot?
No, we have our own Keurig. That's the thing. We've bought a Keurig for.
Not just we. Matt made it happen.
I bought a Keurig for the office. Now,
okay, finish that Mountain Dew.
So here's
and you
the
can
thing.
line that up.
You're bearing the lead.
I'm just trying to be helpful here. I'm burying the lead.
I'm being supportive.
I had to buy a Mountain Dew at work in order to get my caffeine.
We sell Mountain Dew here? I didn't know that.
I know.
I never get past the Coke Zero.
Coke Zero, we have a good selection. We have a terrible selection of snacks. There's nothing healthy in that vending machine. There's nothing that I would want to eat.
You work in radio.
They
Why would
fit
you
a
want
cucumber
anything
in it.
healthy?
How do you think I'm trying to keep my sexy figure? All right, we gotta eat healthy.
This portion of the zone is presented by Metformin. Metformin, because most of the zone people take it, except Matt.
I thought you were.
My dad does.
Shout out, Dad. Shout out, Dad McMaster.
I thought you were staying healthy with all these tour guide dates across the city.
I mean, you got to keep your steps in. That's how I keep the steps in. Take a lady out, walk around the town. That's how I get my 10,000 steps in with a special little woman. I am drinking.
Not like a little woman, but like
not Little Woman the song.
Yeah. Just not like a 3'4", like
smaller.
Like Little Women the show.
That was a movie, Little Women.
Tonight on McMaster and Dwarf.
Jesus,
that'd be a sitcom.
Can you? I mean, this is just taking a road that I did not think it would take. I'm drinking a Mountain Dew. People call this the coffee of Minnesota, so I should be all caffeinated and ready to go.
The coffee of college students.
I call it jet fuel. I
bought. So everybody knows this kind of bit now.
Code Red.
Matt's big board, right? So here's the board. Jimmy, can we get the other camera out here?
Yes, let's do that.
So here was yesterday's big board. Okay. If you're looking here, for those who are listening on the radio, I think last week there was a joke where I was like, I have a big board and I love this. I love the board, and I made a bunch of degenerate bets.
Shout out Matt's big board.
So now I'm on a heater right now.
Okay.
And I told my friends that I've become like a gambling guy on the radio, and they were all shocked because they're like, you're notoriously bad at gambling. But I'm currently just kind of.
We didn't know you could count.
Yeah, they were like, we didn't know you could win. Typically, we fade you.
You know when buddies are like, I didn't know you couldn't. Like, I didn't realize you could read, let alone add numbers.
Damn.
Like when buddies just roast you, they're like, dude, honestly, our expectations of really where you were pretty low.
See, here I support and build him up, and I didn't realize all these people were tearing him down.
Well,
I love this idea. He's fulfilling his destiny.
Those are my high school friends.
Yes.
Aren't they there to do that?
Like inner circle.
Oh no,
you have your high school friends are not there to pick you up or to tell you nice things.
Only when you're drunk.
Yes.
Well, the first part, not the nice things.
Only when you're drunk and you're a liability, and then they're like, "You're great.
Get out of the street.
You got to get in the car.
You are in your underwear and it's 17 degrees."
Not gonna lie, you're embarrassing me right now.
I'm embarrassing a lot of people. Matt's big board.
Okay.
We had Drake +6. Cash it.
Okay.
BYU -2. Cash it. Yale +7. Stinker. Should have.
It was a good. I was with you.
God dang UCSD +2.5. Are you kidding?
It was right there, man.
A half point. Now, if I had won that bet, it would have been a $10 to pay $70 3-leg parlay.
Okay.
I had two other legs.
That's what Hunter Dickinson did to me.
My two other legs that I bet on were Purdue -7. I actually changed this pick. I originally have High Point on here, but on the show with Brian Edwards, I changed it. And then Arkansas +5. So that hit. Tennessee, I believe, hit. Tech did not hit. UCLA hit. Omaha didn't hit. UGA didn't hit. Louisville didn't hit. It was a rough day. It was a rough day on the back of the sheet, but on the front of the sheet.
The front of the sheet was all right.
We're making, but here's the thing. The front of the sheet is like the picks. Like this is the board.
These were the first picks that inspired you.
This is like ancillary stuff over here. This is the real, like these first four.
The backside is I have a problem and can't stop betting.
2-2. I have one ticket in front of me.
So front of the big board is the money maker. The back of the big board
is the money loser,
the money spender.
Money spender, exactly. Yeah. But I didn't bet. I didn't bet those other than the two that I ended up winning, which were Purdue and Arkansas. BYU -2 ended up cashing for me right there.
Okay.
So I get to go back to my casino and make some bets. All right.
What do you have? What do you have next?
That's what I want to know.
So here's the big board part 2.
Oh yes, let's go
on the heater.
Here it is. If you can. Yeah, if you could put that up there, Jimmy, that'd be great. That way I'll actually read it. So you'll be surprised to see if you move it. There you go. Just a little bit that way. There you go.
Yes.
All right. So we're looking at the big board here. You're going to look and you're going to be like, man, that is a lot of double digits up on that big board. And yes, I am rolling with the larger seeds, and I am kind of rolling with, you see 2 picks there of more points. So the first one, Bryant plus 17.5.
Okay.
I really like this matchup. Bryant is a very fast-paced basketball team. They're scoring 80 points per game. Their pace is in the top 15 in the country. Michigan State is a very good basketball team. I'm not putting that against them. But at the same time, Michigan State's lifeblood is rebounding. Bryant has one of the tallest rosters in the tournament. I mean, they don't have a guy in their starting lineup under 6'6". I think that their size and physicality is going to be able to compete with Michigan State. And I think that their speed could be a problem for MSU.
Okay.
And so give me Bryant plus 17.5. Now, Colorado State, shout out our friend Jacob Bigelow, ended up winning their conference, won 10 in a row. This is more of a historical pick. There have only been 2 times since the field expanded that there has been a 12 seed favored against a 5 seed. Okay, those 2 times were Middle Tennessee when they were 12 playing the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and Syracuse when they played Texas A&M. Both those teams won. Both those teams covered. So because Colorado State is on a heater, and Bart Torvik, they're actually been a top 10 team since February, and historically speaking, when 12 seeds are favored against a 5, they tend to cover. Okay, so we move down one more. Xavier. This is not a big brain play, okay? There is not a lot of stats. There's not a lot of here or there or whatever. This is purely they're playing really good basketball. They made the tournament because of their winning streak at the end of the year in the Big East. They should have beaten Marquette in the Big East tournament, but thankfully enough, the committee was able to see that they were playing really, really good basketball, which included a 20-plus point win at home against Creighton, and they put them in the tournament. Now, they are playing Illinois, who also was on a heater to end the year, sans their loss in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
But they had beaten Purdue and Michigan. Yeah, that's way better. On their way.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So it's 2 really hot teams. Here's the thing. I think Xavier and Illinois, just straight up, is going to be the best game of the day. I just think that's going to be the most competitive, plain and simple. Cronwell, Fremantle, really electric players for Xavier. They have that star power. They've been playing fast, really well-coached basketball. Illinois has got a really loaded roster when they're playing well. Boswell, Jakichonis, Ivisic, Merez Johnson is back. He's added another layer or re-added that layer of offensive rebounding that they have there. You cannot forget about Will Riley, who on any given night can become a flamethrower from three-point land. At the same time, as all those guys can be awesome, all those guys could suck.
It can go so bad.
They could go so bad so quickly for the Illini. So I just want to have a little skin in the game. I'm going with Xavier. Akron. And you'll notice here, these are all teams that have been on heaters. Okay? Akron ended the MAC, won the MAC, looked great doing it. Arizona, inconsistent. I just think Akron, and Gary Sharp is really high on Akron. Gary's been telling me that Akron is a really good basketball team for the past 2.5 months. I think 14.5 against a team where the bottom can fall out incredibly quickly is just too many points for a team that a very trusted source of mine has told me is really good. So I'm going with Akron plus 14.5. And then I'm fading North Carolina. Ole Miss has beaten high-quality basketball teams. Multiple quad 1 wins. Deserve to be in the tournament. Yes. Have they gotten their butts whooped at times in the SEC? Absolutely. Do you know who only has 1 quad 1 win still, even after winning a tournament game? North Carolina.
Because it was a quad 2.
Because it was a quad 2. Because San Diego State was actually 53rd in a neutral site. You need to be in the top 50. So, I've been talking way too fast.
You're excited. And you have Mountain Dew, which is basically cocaine.
So, there are the picks for you. Akron plus 13.5.
And Ole Miss was what, plus 2.5? Or do you want Ole Miss? Or are you going Ole Miss money line? Just
no, plus 2. Akron
2.
plus 14.5. Ole Miss plus 2.5. Xavier plus 3.5. Colorado State minus 1.5. Bryant plus 17.5.
He's been so
all
high
on
on
the
Bryant.
points.
I want to watch that game now
Well,
just to
these are
see
all
how it
spread.
turns out.
Well,
These are all
yeah.
spreads.
No, it's good.
But No, I think that the game that I'm looking forward to the most outside of, like I already told you, Xavier, Illinois is going to be a run and gun. It's going to be a really interesting battle. But Memphis versus Colorado State.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis is a little bit banged up, but they got a guy. His name's PJ Haggerty.
I don't know if you know, out there to Seattle.
I don't know if you know about PJ Haggerty. PJ Haggerty's pretty damn good at basketball. He's one of the best players in the AAC. He's averaged 22 points a game this year. 12 of their games in the AAC this year by Memphis have been decided by less than 10 points. Colorado State has been on an absolute heater. They have their own PJ Haggerty and Nick Clifford, who's been playing lights out basketball for them. Colorado State's defense has been really, really good this year as well. They've held opponents under 74 points in all during their entire winning streak. So it'll be like you'll have two high quality basketball players, Nick Clifford and PJ Haggerty going against each other. But then you'll also have the AAC champion in Memphis playing a red hot Colorado State Rams team who, we talk about Will Wade in McNeese State, or McNeese, and how he's going to NC State. And it seems like some of his guys, they've been playing like it's a tryout to go with him to a Power 5 team. And they look like they're playing their butts off in order to show him, hey, I can go and play a high caliber Power 5 basketball schedule. You got to think the same thing with Colorado State, man. Like Nico Medved, with all cases and purposes at this point, and everything indicates that he's going to be the next head coach at Minnesota. And I think it's an interesting wrinkle now that we have in college basketball. It's like, if you know that your coach is coming, you kind of play for the right to be brought with him, right? And so
is the Drake coach McCollum going to Iowa?
Yeah,
like there's all of those, and that's almost every single game.
Where does High Points coach Alan Husko?
Because there's so many openings
with a job too.
If there's so many
Ryan
openings
Odom at VCU,
and you see guys having success, that's where you turn to, especially if they have any kind of connection to the place. Which is, to me, I would rather we didn't have to have those conversations or that be in the news cycle. I'd rather just be watching the basketball.
It's the reality,
but the reality is that's what it is. It's who's coaching their way right now into a good 1 year or a good couple of years into a better job. Who's playing their way in this tournament into potentially a bigger school.
That is the wrinkle to this tournament that is going to exist from this point on, which also too, like, it does improve the sport in an aspect though, where there will be players who will want to go and play for mid-major teams that are consistently making the tournament, because it's the NCAA tournament has become about, like, it still is about the pride. It still is about the memories. It still is about the, hey, I was able to play, being able to tell people, hey, I played in the NCAA tournament, being able to tell people, hey, I won an NCAA tournament game. But it's also become the stage now.
It is a massive stage.
Look at the NBA playoffs, right? I mean, there are a lot of guys, you look in the history of the NBA, who got paid strictly based off of how they were in the playoffs, right? Two guys that come to my mind immediately, and I don't know if how many people will know them, are TJ Warren and DeMar Carroll, right? Both those guys didn't do a whole lot, in the regular season and weren't the best in their careers, but they were dominant in the playoffs. Carroll for Atlanta, TJ Warren for Indiana in the bubble, and they ended up getting paid a ton of money because of it, just because of, hey, when the moments are biggest, these guys are able to step up. I think the NCAA tournament, with its current, where we currently are in college basketball, and the fact that every game is national, every game is being watched, right? Let me tell you something right now, man. Like, we're talking about Colorado State playing Memphis and Omaha, right? Like that's happening.
Awesome.
It's happening across the country. PJ Haggerty was a name that maybe, if you aren't a college basketball fan, probably may not have heard of until today or yesterday or this week.
Most
right?
of the St. Peter's roster.
Exactly. You had no clue who they were. Look at the McNeese manager, Amir Khan, right? That's a guy that nobody knew. Like
Jacob Bigelow 2.0.
Jacob Bigelow 2.0. Like, it's just, here's another guy that I'm going to tell you, Sean Padula. He plays for Ole Miss. he made that clutch shot against Arkansas in the SEC tournament to win the game 83-80. Like, Sean Padula is a guy that he has a big game. Man, like, we're going to be talking about that dude, and he has the potential to be like a darling in the NCAA tournament. How many times have I said Aniwa Tate Jones's name?
I don't know, but I don't get tired of hearing it because this is your best name pronunciation.
The guy had an absolute stinker yesterday, but still, we talk about his name because it's such a big stage, and so it's fun to say. This has just become an aspect of the NCAA tournament where you just have people playing for different things now. At the same time, does it take away from the product? Like, is the tournament any worse because coaches know that they're coaching for better opportunity? Is the product any worse because players know that they're playing for more money? No, that's any business.
I don't think the product has suffered at all when you get into the game.
And I know maybe I'm arguing against no one here, but I think it is important.
I've done that too. They call it schizophrenia.
They just, it's a massive player showcase now. I mean, it's a PWP fan says right in the comments, the tournament is a giant player showcase, and that's fine. Showcase the players, have them make money. And isn't it kind of cool too if you're watching let's say you're watching a Drake game, right? And you see Bennett Sturts playing. One hell of a player for the Bulldogs. And you become a Bennett Sturts fan. And then Bennett Sturts enters the transfer portal, and then he ends up going to your favorite team. Like, damn, I already have a connection with this guy. I already liked what this guy did at Drake. I'm going to buy a Bennett Sturts jersey. I see
what you're saying. Is Fred listeing? What?
Well, yeah, I kind of, I don't
know that's what you're getting at.
He'll probably end up being an Iowa player. Being honest, but I mean, it's just one of those things where the tournament has changed drastically because of the implications of NIL. But it's one of those, or at least how it's viewed, or the implications of the tournament.
Everything around the tournament.
But it hasn't taken away from the product. It hasn't taken away from the conversation. It hasn't taken away from anything that we love about why we sit down and we rot on our couches yesterday and today. Ball is still ball. Now, has that happened across every sport? No. It's just fortunate enough for you college basketball fans. It's been good for you.
I love it. And today, because you're still first round action on the men's side, you're just starting first round action on the women's side. It is games galore. There is not a break once the games get going. And that's the exciting thing for me. And I know you said yesterday it ended up kind of being mid in the way that the games played out. I couldn't turn off the TV. There was a small section of like 20 minutes that I had to turn it to Bluey and watch the games on my phone because my daughter just got up from nap. Outside of that,
how was Bluey?
It was a banger. It was fine. It was good.
Okay,
we've seen all of it. My daughter is cursing and saying biscuits all the time, but that's whatever. But for the games, like, I can't turn it off because I love this time of year.
Well, also, too, even though that yesterday, like I said, was a little bit mid, like there really only was 1.5, maybe 2.5 competitive games, the entire slate, you still are watching the game hoping for the moment, right? Like there's that one sliver of hope when Alabama State had tied the game early taking the lead in the first half early in the game. You're like, oh my God. Are we watching a UNBC right now? Are we watching an FD? No, seriously. Like, are we watching this unfold? There's always that like just weird hope of like every game can bring such a drastically different and dramatic result because of all of the different and dramatic results that you've seen in the past.
Well, and that's one of the fun things that has not changed, where we all have a bracket, whether there's money on it or not, you have a bracket. So if you have a team who's in the tournament, Omaha, Creighton, Nebraska women, like, you're looking at, I want them to win.
Yeah.
And then you're also like cheering a little bit for your bracket. And then you're kind of cheering for chaos. Is there a lower seed that's going to go do something against a higher seed that they weren't supposed to?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you all have kind of this hierarchy of the way you're cheering for the games, and there's interest in every single game. If you turn it on and know nothing about the two teams that are playing, but one team's an 11 seed, you're like, I kind of want that 11. Like, what's that 11 got going on?
It's just it's massive exposure, but at the same time, it's rooted in what we like best, competitive sport. And I saw a tweet yesterday where it's like the NBA and college basketball, and it was the Oppenheimer meme where it's like college basketball is technically worse basketball than the NBA, but it's actually better because it is worse basketball. And it's paradoxical.
It makes paradoxical.
Exactly. It's paradoxical. It makes no sense, which is exactly why it does make sense, because, and you can make the argument too that, it's because it's just more rooted in strategy and more rooted in just players actually being coached. And like you see all these,
there's such a wider range of talent.
Exactly.
So,
college sports is changing, but it's nice that the things that we've always had, some things don't. And this is one of the very few and pure things that don't change. And even though that slimy Seth Davis wants to expand the field, absolutely not. I don't think Seth Davis is slimy. I'm making tongue-in-cheek joke there. But, the guy who wants to expand the field to 76 or whatever. So vocal about it. No, thank you. I understand you're trying to make everything help. You're trying to do what's better for the sport. There are very few things nowadays that they don't change in college sports. This is one of them. Okay. And even though the things have changed around them, it's still our baby. It's still the tourney.
Well, when you line it up, when the game started yesterday at 11:15 Central, Omaha, SIUE, Bryant, UC San Diego, all were 6 wins away from a national title in the same way Houston, Auburn, Duke, Gonzaga, Florida, whatever. You're all 6 wins away.
Yeah.
Every single one of you. Now, the roads can be tougher or harder, whatever it is, but every single one of you just have to win those 6 games. It's not the conference tournament. There's a double bye here, or it's a ladder and this team has to win 5 games before they get to you.
Yeah.
You set it up and you're immediately there once you get to the first round action. 6 wins for anybody.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what your seed is.
And we'll have 32 more teams compete today, 16 more games, more teams that are just 6 games away from being a national champion, trying to cut that down to 5. Hey, when we come back, I just got an email regarding Nebraska football, so we'll talk about that a little bit in regards to some of the things you might expect in the spring. And then on top of that, Caleb's going to give you 2 games he's excited to watch. I'll give you 2 games I'm excited to watch. Jimmy will always chip in as he always does. You're listening to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. I feel like I'm about to go on the ice. This was like the
Nice.
last song I listened to in high school for 4 years. Seriously.
Okay.
I believe it. Yeah.
This is like, this gets you in it. Like, if you ever, for those YMCA athletes out there, or you're playing beer league hockey or softball, you want to get fired up before you go and play a game? Oh, right here.
This or some Hall
Brain
& Oates.
Brain Scoop. Brain Scoop. It's a great song.
It is.
Hey, talk about, we were talking about people getting paid. Some people got overpaid, especially on the Kansas Jayhawk basketball roster.
That's what happens.
What would you have paid for a Paul Skeens signed rookie card patch deal, if it even was signed? I don't know if
That's a Nick Grimm question.
What
I
would
think
you
he would
pay?
give his life savings.
Yeah, for me, I'm not paying anything.
I'm
but
not either. I'm texting
But
Nick, hey, go buy this.
if someone gave it to me, I'd gladly put it up for auction.
Same. Pay off my debt.
What did somebody pay for it?
$1.1 million.
Yeah, I'm not paying $1.1.
It's a record paid for a Skeens card, who, by the way, Paul Skeens makes a base salary of $875,000.
But his
For
card,
now.
But his card cost $1.1 million.
Is he a Boris client? Because if that is, then he won't be making $800,000
I got a
next
question
time
for you. First off,
when the Yankees sign
the
him.
guy just is a rookie, so I don't know if he really has like a full on MLB negotiating agent.
Oh, he has an agent.
Well, no, he does, but like not. I mean, to do his like marketing deals, right? I mean, there's no contract for him. I guess arbitration, but that's not for a couple years anyway. He's going to be a Boris guy, right? I mean,
probably.
I mean, maybe later, but right now he's not.
he's
But
going.
by the way-
he's going to sign at some point. You don't think Scott Boris's hands is going to get on Paul Skeens? He will be. That is just like how everybody says, oh, he'll be a great Red Sox or Yankee. Paul Skeens will be a great Boris client.
Yep.
Okay. The Boris family saw this guy pitch in Pittsburgh last year, and they started licking their chops for their brand new private plane they're going to buy.
Yep.
Off
By
his
the way,
contract alone.
Since Garrett Cole's broken, here's the replacement.
I understand social media and I understand hyping things up. How dumb was that video with Paul Skeens of the moment Paul Skeens learned he's the opening day starter?
Yeah.
Who else was it going to be?
Damn.
Like-
Was it
I
going to
don't
be
know.
Doug Drabeck?
Were they re-signing Bronson Arroyo?
No.
I got no clue.
Like, was there a LeBron James meeting? Hey, you're going to start for the Lakers tonight.
We're going to go with LeBron
You know, it was-
or maybe Austin Reed.
It
We're
was
going to go with
crazy
LeBron.
that you were on the showcase list this time last year, and now you're going to be the opening day starter. Like, the guy knew
Hey,
from the
Mike.
last start.
It's like when
year
Chris
he was gonna
Farley
be the
lost to
opening day
Patrick
starter.
Swayze for the Chippendales deal.
Hey, Mike, we've got Utah tonight. It is the NBA Finals, but just want to let you know you're starting.
You're starting.
You or Jason Caffey, up to you. Jason's ready to go.
Hey, after Utah State's loss yesterday, these two games today become very important for the Mountain West. The Mountain West, as of late in the NCAA tournament, last 2 years, hasn't done the best. Utah State got the crud kicked out of them yesterday against the fifth, sixth best team in the Big Ten. Wasn't even competitive.
Still more bids than the ACC.
San Diego State goes ahead. They play an ACC team that hadn't won hadn't won more than one quad one win all year. Hey, they get their crud beaten as well. Very important for New Mexico and for Colorado State to look good today because, over the course of period of time, it's not one tournament that can be like, maybe this conference isn't as prestigious as we thought it was. But if you go 0 for 4 and you get the crud kicked out of you every single game, there definitely are some head-turning reactions. And we are going to, don't get me wrong, next week, we are going to dive in to the whole, what do the Big Ten do? What do the SEC do? What do the Big East do? What do the Big 12 do? And it's not fully going to matter. Really? It's one, they're singular events, right? I don't think that one tournament can really dictate the full outlook of what certain conferences or where the power conferences were. Hell, UConn kicked the crap out of everybody the last 2 years. The Big East was a 3-bid league
Yeah.
last season. So, I don't think that I think it gets overblown a little bit, like how many bids in a conference you get and how many wins in a conference you get really dictates how good your conference is. At the same time, if you go 0-4 in the first round and you lose double digits in every single game, no Gouda. No Gouda.
I think there's and also the Mountain West is changing with all of the conference realignment. I think there is only one conference legacy that'll be up for debate after this tournament, because we know where the ACC was, and there's only the 2 teams remaining. We know the Big Ten was kind of middling, and you're seeing where some of those teams play out. And yeah, Michigan State's a 2, but also the Big Ten hasn't necessarily had the national championship success for the last 25 years.
No, but I mean, but they've consistently, like, Michigan was in the title game.
They're there. You're going to get Purdue was in the title game last year. So, yes, you've got guys probably going to get an Elite Eight or a couple of teams, and can they get a Final Four? The legacy that's really up right now is for the SEC, because you had the John Rothsteins say, best power conference of all time, greatest of all time. This is it. Because they got 1 million teams into the NCAA tournament. Now, what you have to do is you have to win games.
Yeah.
And I said, because they're you have a month to still play this out, 85 Big East is still the greatest power conference of all time.
Sure.
Because of what they did in March, you
fine.
had 3 of the Final 4, and technically because of stuff being vacated, you had the only 3 because the other one had to the season didn't count, postseason didn't count, and you had the 2 champions or 2 in the championship. So for the SEC, you have a potential legacy of, if you get at least 3 in the Final 4 and you have the 2 in the championship game, and you had so many in the round of 6, or you had so many that made the field, you have that potential to be greatest power conference of all time. That's the only conference legacy that'll be dictated by the results. Everything else, I don't know. You already know how the leagues went over the course of the year.
Last year, the Mountain West had a record 6 teams in the field. They went 4-6. Okay, and they only had 1 team in San Diego State who reached the Sweet 16. 2 years ago, the conference had 4 bids. It resulted in only 5 wins, and those 5 wins was just because San Diego State went all the way to the title game. The other 3 teams, they had lost in their first game. And then in the other 3 tournaments before San Diego State had gone to the national championship game, the league went 0-8 in 3 years. Okay, so you have 4-6 last year. You have 5-3 2 years ago, just because the Aztecs were awesome, and then you have 0-8. Mountain West currently 0-2 right now. 2 big games for them today. Both of them will be very competitive, at least you hope. But if they aren't competitive, it's just one of those things where it's like over a 5-6 year span, that's when we can start looking at, all right, are you really, are you at the level that we think you are?
Because I don't think they're losing any bids because of this, though.
I think if you went over a 5-6 year span and had a pretty abysmal NCAA tournament record, I think that would definitely factor into how many bids you get, because then you start getting to once again, if the SEC has an absolute stinker of a tournament, right? They end up only having, out of the 14 teams, only 3 of them get to the second weekend, right?
Right.
I don't think anyone next year is going to be hesitant of putting the SEC or a lot of SEC teams in, because we just watch the games, we look at the stats, we're going to throw them in there, right? But after if there's a 5-6 year span, especially with one of these lower conferences that isn't necessarily considered to be in the Power 5, it used to be Power 6, now it's Power 5. Especially with these lower conferences, if there's a long range of just no, they're actually, these numbers and analytics, we overestimate how good these teams actually are, and maybe the competition isn't as staunch as we thought it was, then I think you get into the rightful conversation of, all right, maybe we have to dial back our expectations for the Mountain West. And so, like I said, they were 3 straight years. They ended up being 0-8. Last year, they were 4-6. They were 3-5 the year before that. And the only reason they were, or 5-3 the year before that. And the only reason they were 5 is because one team went on a magical run. But so far, they're 0-2 with a margin of defeat of over 50.
Right.
So,
and I think for us, yeah, absolutely. When we see the games, we should pick against Mountain West teams.
Yeah,
I'm saying I don't think the committee.
I think the committee,
like if the committee looks and they go, okay,
over a long period of time, look. I'm not on the committee, so I'm not going to say what they're deciding or not.
North Carolina's in. That's what they're deciding.
But at least in my head, if a conference who is not a Power 5 conference has an abysmal record over a long period of time and is losing games by wide margins in the tournament, I think that is a voice of concern in terms of, well, maybe we should think about giving other spots to other teams, right? San Diego State loses to a North Carolina team who did not deserve to be in the tournament by a very wide margin. You don't think there are people on the committee who thought, man, maybe we should have given not just North Carolina's bid, but San Diego State's bid to Indiana, who had beaten Purdue, who had beaten Michigan State, who at times looked like an actual good team, and who, if they had beaten Oregon in the Big Ten Conference tournament, might have been in the tournament automatically. Like, you start thinking about things like that, and then the residual effect of like next year down the line. Let's not forget, we put in a Mountain West team over to a Big Ten team last year, and the Mountain West ended up going 0-4 and had a margin of defeat of 100. I think that could, over a long period of time, I think those things could have some factors. Give me a game that you like.
I like North Carolina Ole Miss, as we brought up.
Give me
North
a different
Carolina.
game that you like.
Okay, I like, and here, well, it's more that I'm interested in this game than necessarily where I think the final score is going to be, but it's Duke. And here's my reason for that. Duke is not going to be challenged by Mount St. Martin.
No, not
but
at all.
But when you're looking at how is this tournament going to play out,
it kind of does play a little bit through Duke.
It plays through Duke. Duke is the overall favorite. They're not the number one overall seed, but they are the favorite. That's where the money is.
They have the easiest.
But also,
by far,
how healthy is Cooper Flagg's ankle?
How many minutes do you play? I'm not playing him more than.
I max him at 20.
I'm 20.
Max.
I'm not playing him more than
20. And
Jimmy, how long do you play?
How long do I play what?
Cooper Flag.
How long do you think you play?
Against Mount St. Mary's today.
I had 10 minutes. I'm going to run. A little sweat going.
I'm going to be honest with you. I wouldn't play him.
And I was tempted to say that because I think we could go play Mount St. Mary's.
Why would you play him? Why even risk it? It's an ankle injury.
I want to.
It sucks. Ankles suck.
He hasn't played in a week.
He doesn't need to.
Get him a little run. Get him a little run. If the ankle's good enough to go.
Yeah, you can go on a run on a treadmill. He can go on the run.
Yeah, but treadmills are boring.
In shoot around.
I want it in game.
Yeah.
I want a little run in game.
It's like, all right, you're good. Sit down. We're up 10-3.
I don't know.
I think we got this
running game against a bunch of guys who, no offense,
but we'll see what Shire says.
Going to be.
But here's where it is.
Shire knows more than I do.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm not going to contest.
And their medical staff knows more than we
do. The
NCAA
will probably say he needs to play because CBS.
But if you're looking at the outlook of the way the rest of this tournament goes, if Cooper Flag isn't playing and he's got like a boot on the sideline, you're concerned.
Yeah.
For the way Duke is going to continue to run this, or if you're a team that you want Duke to lose early, you're feeling good about it, whatever it is. But the way it looks for Cooper Flag this afternoon, that determines a lot of the way the rest of this tournament plays out. That's why I'm super interested in a 116 game in a way that I otherwise wouldn't. If he was healthy, if they got through the ACC tournament and there was no injury scare, I don't care about that game one iota. But because of that and him being the number one player in the country and likely the upcoming number one player in the NBA draft, I am super into and interested in the way that game plays out and the way John Shire organizes his team.
I'm not going to be interested in a game where I know I'm just going to turn off the TV.
And turn it off. There's 3
You're not
other
quad
games.
boxing?
Yeah, there's other games.
I'll just put a different TV. Well, I actually have 3 TVs, so we've been able to.
He can put Bluey on that screen.
The game's on the entire time. I'm just not. I don't know. I think there are more competitive games to be had. Hi, Chris Prudon. How are you? Just walk on in while we're having a full
be
show.
nice. Be nice. He just took care of you.
You are the sweetest
Respect
man
and
ever.
love. Yeah.
Chris Prudon knows that I like my coffee.
You were going to be bouncing off the walls for the last hour.
I know. I've been complaining, and when I complain, Mr. Chris Prudon comes in and gets me Throne Sport Coffee French Vanilla.
Sport coffee.
What do we
That's
say?
What it says.
What do we
Thank
say?
you, Chris.
Yes.
Does it got electrolytes?
I love you.
Does
What
it have
plants
what plants
crave.
crave?
Because that's where we're headed.
Does it have electrolytes? Is that because it's sport coffee?
Because it's what plants crave.
It's got what Matt craves.
Yeah.
Okay, so UConn Oklahoma is going to be a good game tonight.
I agree. And here I'll give you this. Because UConn is back-to-back national champion, and then obviously they're not like a top seed.
They haven't played a competitive NCAA tournament game in 3 years.
They've rolled everybody.
They have not. This is a weird situation for UConn where they walk into an NCAA tournament game where they're like, we may not win this game by double digits. We may not.
They may win by 9.
Absolutely kick the crap out of the team we're playing. Also, too, I just love
Who are
games
they playing?
that have
Oklahoma.
Double digits.
I love
They'll continue
teams
today.
that have really, really good players. Okay.
Most
And
do.
especially young players and star young players. Jeremiah Fears for Oklahoma is awesome. He's coming off a 28 and 29 point games in the SEC tournament. And I'm a Porter Moser guy because I'm from Chicago. That's kind of a given.
Bears.
After starting the year 13-0, there was at one point that Porter Moser looked like he was going to lose his job. He went 3-10 in 13 games, but at the end of the year, beating Mississippi State, and then also handing Missouri a loss, handing Texas a loss at the end of the year, and then picking up a very important win against 9 seed Georgia in the SEC tournament. Like, I think Oklahoma, they're playing with a little bit of house money. At one point, they were kind of done. Porter was on the hot seat.
Yeah.
It was almost like sign, seal, deliver that, hey, this is getting a little scary here. But they've rallied down. They got some good players. They got some good seniors.
And they'll be hiring
Jeremiah
a football
Fears
coach
is
in a year
a
or so.
superstar. The game in itself, like both these teams, I mean, UConn's offense is incredible. UConn's offense is one of the best in the country. It's shockingly enough, Dan Hurley's team doesn't know how to play defense, which is quite the opposite of what you've had.
I thought he's the
last
greatest
2
coach in
years.
college basketball.
And they can't rebound really well. But
He also said half his roster is in the portal.
yeah,
Oh.
that was one hell of a 60
So where
minutes interview.
Yeah, where is everybody's mind going into this one for the UConn Huskies?
If they're like me and Matt, they're on a sandwich later. But
this team has played better down the stretch, and I think they've rallied in the regard.
They'll
And
win
I'm
by
just so
15.
interested to see like what this could very well be a game where it's like, man, UConn can show up and kick the crap out of Oklahoma. But then it also could be a game where you got like a superstar in Jeremiah Fears who just steps up and like wills his team to the finish line. And then you also got Jalen Moore, who has had a really good year for Oklahoma, who's a senior, who's playing, maybe one of the last games of his career. So, Oklahoma's a good scoring team. At the same time, it'll be really interesting to see a team who went 6-12 in conference play in the NCAA tournament against the back-to-back defending national champions. So, Hey, we got more happening in sports than just college basketball.
You sure?
We are going, yeah.
interesting if true.
So we'll touch on some of those things. Then we'll bring on Mike Schaefer at 9 o'clock. Don't go anywhere. You'll listen to Gary and Matt here on 1620 The Zone. we'll have 8 games tomorrow to decide who is going to the Sweet 16, and then we'll have 8 games on Sunday to decide the rest of the field of the Sweet 16. One guy synonymous with the number 8 scored another goal yesterday in the NHL as Alex Ovechkin. I think he's at 888 now. He has 888.
Oh, that's fun.
That's got to mean
goals
something good.
for number 8.
Retire.
Who is not too far
It's
away
like Gronk and 69 touchdowns.
from Wayne Gretzky's record.
Going for the record.
Going for the record of Wayne Gretzky. That's one of those things. I don't know. They're definitely forcing this. Like, he's getting it, and he's not leaving until he gets it, but he deserves it. But I don't know. It's a little.
You're having a hard time, like, you're trying to care.
It's like not.
I mean, you care, but you're not.
Yeah. Like what?
Maybe
Wayne,
you'll feel different.
Like what Wayne did was a little bit more impressive than Ovi doing it, maybe. But
Well,
Ovi
doesn't
did
Gretzky also have like a million more points?
Oh yeah,
still?
Yeah. This is
Like
the goals
that's
record.
never getting
I don't know.
touched.
It's just one of those.
When
Like,
your nickname is the Great
I
One.
struggle with the whole, like, we always talk about MLB players, like past baseball players and current baseball players. I think that the NHL has always, like, is now having that problem because the technology has just completely skyrocketed in terms of speed and quickness, and just literally everything is so much better now.
That we're
than
not
it was then.
appreciating Gump Worley and his.
Like, it's how do we? I don't know if we're appreciating this era as much as we appreciate last era, and I think we're getting to the point where it's really hard to, like, measure what the better accomplishment is, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't think Ovi really needs to break the record for me to say that he's a better goal scorer than Wayne Gretzky, because he is. That's what I thought. So anyway, he number 8 is at number 188. Not that we need to get into a whole hockey convo. Every time I look up, the United States men's soccer team is losing to Panama.
What a disappointment!
It
Great
happened.
song.
Losing to Panama.
Pulisic he after the game he was shell shocked.
Yeah. So they won. They lost 1-0 yesterday against Panama. So
Nil, as they say.
yes,
they were within
it's
one.
one of those things where it's like, I've been told for years and years and years how this is the golden age of American soccer. And
Supposed
how
to
they're
be.
supposed
Soccer
to be
matters,
so
yeah.
good and everything like that. And it's just like every time I look up, they're firing a coach or getting a new general manager or trying to figure out what they're doing. Hey, the Nebraska media schedule got released for when coaches will be speaking during practice. Week 1 of spring is on March 24th. Matt Rule will talk on March 25th.
Pro Day next week.
At around 11:30, yeah. And then Pro Day will happen. I believe that's on the 20. Yeah, that's also on the 25th. That'll begin at 12:15. So you'll see big day for Nash Hupmaker in that regard, as he got snubbed.
Yeah, and
from being
now
at the
spring's
combine.
really going next week.
But I'm looking up and down the schedule. I mean, all the coaches are going to be talking. Rule is going to be available quite on a regular basis. So
A couple of open practice sessions.
Yes.
We'll be able to bring some news back to the listeners.
hopefully I don't think I'll be able to get out.
I'll
there
send
with
you
those.
notes this time.
Send me notes. That'll be.
You sent me
look at
notes
that.
last year.
Look at that. That's full circle. But let me tell you something right now. I'm looking at this media availability schedule. We're going to have something to talk about almost every day from March 24th all the way to the end of spring of April 26th.
The
Usually how it
Husker
goes.
games.
Full of content.
May the odds
Do you know-
be ever in your favor.
Do you know who's always full of content? It's Mike Schaefer. Mike Schaefer is coming up next. Hey, don't forget to email us at the Equitable Bank inbox. Equitable Bank, we take banking personally. Matt at 1620 The Zone, Jimmy at 1620 The Zone. After we talk to Matt Verzel, we will get into those emails.
Shout out my emailers.
We've had a couple that have been sprinkled throughout the show, so we'll get to that, plus a little preview of Auburn and Creighton. Should be an incredible game. And hey, don't forget to reach out at us at the J-Tech Construction Line Twitter feed.
By the way, Matt, since I got to duck out here in a few minutes, Jays win tomorrow.
Jays win. All right.
Yeah.
Hell of a prediction from you, Jimmy Chavez.
Yeah.
At Matt McMedia, MattMcMedia. Caleb Henry. Is that Caleb Henry? Is that your Twitter?
At iCaleb Henry.
At iCaleb Henry.
It's like an iPod for you olds that still remember what those were.
We all needed introductions there, but one man who does not need an introduction, but I'm going to give it to him anyway from Huskers 24/7. It's Mr. Mike Schaefer. Mike, how you doing, man?
I am good. I'm assuming Matt, you never owned an iPod.
I did own an iPod. I actually let me tell you something right now. I am a youngin, but I was like one of the last young people before the iPod. I had a VCR, I had a tape, I had all that stuff. I had I existed before DVR was a thing. Okay,
so did we.
I was there. So when the iPod came out,
DVR sure, but TiVo I think had you by a couple years.
A little bit,
yeah, maybe
TiVo.
You're not able to talk about the game changer that was the iPod Shuffle.
No, I was there. I was there for all of that. I remember when the Game Boy was a big deal. I remember when the DS
1990
when the DS came out, when the Nintendo DS came out,
go to the DS.
And we were like, "Oh my
green
god,
screen.
You have two different screens." The Game Boy only has one screen. I was the last era of young kid without technology.
I had the attachable light to the Game Boy Color. Okay.
Yeah,
one of my first words was Atari.
And then I played. And then when I was 5, the iPod came out.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember.
Are you still there, Mike? Did you hang up on us?
Yeah. No, I didn't want to cut you off before you started talking about rotary phone.
Mm-hmm. Let me tell you about the 4 channels.
I have dialed when I was younger. I did dial a number on a rotary phone before. I'm telling you right now, I am young, but I was the last.
At a children's museum?
No,
yeah.
at
Pioneer
my grandmother's
Village
house.
in Minden.
I had to call my mother. You guys, I'm telling you right now, you asked me the question, were you alive before iPods were out? I was. I remember when the iPod Touch was a very big deal.
I asked if you had an iPod.
I did. I had multiple. I broke them.
Matt remembers the 84 Cubs like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Damn black cat.
Ryan Sandberg. Ryan Sandberg guy.
Oh, that's great. I'll make sure to buy you a jersey. Hey, how's your week going? Are you rotting on the couch watching the NCAA tournament, or are you catching up on recruiting? Are you getting ready for what will be a long and not long, but a vast media schedule that just got released? Well, how have you been preparing for things this week? How's it been?
Yesterday was a nice day to roughly try to avoid leaving the house anytime after 11. I did have to get Hudson from daycare, and I did pick up some barbecued smoked meats for the evening session, which were a bigger highlight than probably the games themselves.
Yeah, kind of mid.
It was entertaining nonetheless. I mean, I thought the evening games were going to be solid, and they were. I mean, Arkansas, Kansas was an affront to basketball at times, but
it was rough.
It was entertaining. The Michigan game, I don't know how they keep getting away with this.
Neither do I.
They are, and I don't want to say that they're not good, because they're a good basketball team, but no basketball team that exclusively plays 90% of its games inside of 5 points should always win those games. It is insanity to me that they just keep flipping the coin, calling heads in the air, and it keeps coming up heads for them over and over and over. And it's not that they aren't good. It's just that the level of good that they are doesn't seem to warrant the ability to win all of these games close and late every single time, or to somehow convince your opponent to just make really bad decisions over and over and over in the last 2 minutes of a game.
It's so well
but Michigan basketball has been able to pull that off. UNO, it felt like if they could have hit threes early in that game, would have been in a better position in the second half when St. John's was going to find its sea legs, if you will. But that was a fun performance. I tweeted out that I'd love to see J.J. White and Lincoln.
Yeah,
and
I got mad at you.
Discovered many people have never watched J.J. White play because he was compared to Raleigh Wooster or Cam Mack. And neither of those, I think, are accurate descriptions of a guy who is nearly 50% from the field and nearly 45% from the three-point line, plays a pretty good point guard position, and I think would be a heck of an addition, but it would require Fred Hoiberg
Can we
to have
pump the brakes a little bit, though, on the whole? I would love to see the mid-major guy in Lincoln. Just give it a little grace period for a second. Just 2 seconds.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, Matt, but this is 2025. That's college sports.
I know.
You're making your laundry list or your shopping list while you're sitting. If you're a Nebraska fan and you're watching these games, you're just making a shopping list of players that you would like to see in Lincoln.
Well, they're going to have to get a whole brand new
It's like
roster.
a catalog.
Oh, brand new roster.
You got to
wait
wait
around
around until 9:30 at night.
I want a little decorum. Just a little decorum.
You're not getting it. I'm sorry. You're in the wrong. You're in the wrong. Look, Matt, I'm watching UNO play last night.
You are.
And I have to get the graphic that Nebraska has never won a tournament game.
Hey, we both, my man. We both.
I'm just saying, if that's going up, then I'm putting together my list of what I'd like to see in Lincoln.
Adrian Dowell didn't put that graphic up. All right. It was, CBS Sports. Anyway, I'm just kidding on you. Hey, I got to ask you. So we just got the whole media schedule released for spring football. It's going to be a lot. I mean, Matt Rule's going to be on the podium plenty. All these coaches are going to be talking, but you're a veteran and have been around these spring just football camps and, this kind of time of year so many times. What would you say is like the hit rate in terms of guys that we hear about that are doing well in spring, or guys who become spring stories that actually end up becoming impact players in the fall?
I think it's really sort of depends on the season ahead, and then kind of, there's a lot of nuance to that question because there's different people that are going to come up. Like I remember Brody Belt's name would come up a lot, like 2 years before he really started to play.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just have coaches that really appreciate a guy who shows up and he works hard, and they know he's probably not going to be a star, but they want to give him a little bit of run and a little bit of appreciation for being a really good practice player. And then eventually, Brody Belt became a guy who Nebraska would put in on kick returns or run jet sweeps for the first play of the game up in Minnesota, or, things of that nature. And so you have that end of the spectrum, right? And then you have a guy, and I'm jumping around here, so if you can follow where I'm going,
I'll follow.
Congratulations, but it might be a little choppy because we're going from Brody Belt to Nash Hutmacher. Yeah. But if you go to like the spring of 2023, and I know Caleb was around there for this, you hear the way that Terrence Knighton or Matt Rule was talking about the defensive line, and then you match it up with like, wow, this position group, we don't really know what to think of.
Sure.
And then Ty and Nash are in there, and Ty we had known. Like Ty was kind of a known quantity. We didn't know that he was going to eventually be, big ass Ty Robinson, as coined by the afternoon show over on your station over there. But we knew that he was going to at least be solid. Nash was someone that behind the scenes, it sounded like things had been good, but the actual visuals of watching him play. And then you went and you heard him talk, and you heard them talk about Nash, and it was like, all right, I can paint a picture here where this could look pretty good. And a healthy Nash Hutmacher was a shop wrecker in 2023. Yeah. I mean, so like you get both ends of the spectrum where sometimes it's just gut feel of, all right, they're saying it. I'm listening to the guy. I'm looking at him and his bicep is bigger than my head. Like things like that. And then sometimes you have he's further off the depth chart, but they clearly like what he's doing over here. And then in the middle of all of that, you get a player whose name gets thrown out there either because he's directly asked, a coach is directly asked the question, so they're just answering it, and they're probably not going to say anything bad, but it's like, he's doing some good things out there.
Yeah, Ruquan Buckley looks great.
If the quote is he's doing some good things out there, chances are he might be doing some good things out there, but it's not enough to get a better, answer than that. So it's a lot of it is just sort of sussing through, and then you're using your sources or using your own eyes or having a little bit of a gut feel. But yeah, I mean, there's for every sort of spring MVP that flames out, there's a bunch of guys that we got the clues on that either you lock in on it and you think, all right, that shot maker might be a guy here. And then you're on the forefront of when he is a guy. Or you talk yourself into someone who ultimately doesn't really end up having much of an effect on the season. So I think it's a lot of it is parsing through. Now, the difference is you're not going to be able to put eyeballs on them in a game situation like the spring football game. And that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing. You think about last year with a guy like Dante Dowdell, it was, he's too slow. He can never play at this level, blah, blah, blah. And then he's the starting running back in August, and he was pretty good last year. I mean, it wasn't great, but he was pretty good. And they're going to have to replace that production somehow. And then you get the reverse where someone catches. Jalen Lloyd had a really nice spring game, and that might have been his best game in 2024. And that's not a knock on Jalen Lloyd. Nebraska just never found a way to use him like they could have or maybe should have. And now he's on his way to Oklahoma State. So I think spring football, you can tell yourself whatever you want, but if you kind of follow the clues and you listen to the coaches and parse through the lines a little bit, they'll guide you in the right direction.
Yeah.
But you just can't be willingly led on everything.
We're going to get 3 opportunities for the opening portion of practice being open. So take that always with a grain of salt, depending on what portion and how guys are moving around. Sometimes they're just doing stretches. But as you talk about, Shafe, having to parse through what the coaches say, there are so many new coaches, we don't necessarily know the way they hint at things. So there's going to be a little bit of that challenge this spring.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have no idea what a Terry Braden interview is going to be like.
Yeah.
When he's talking about these new defensive linemen, or he's talking about Riley Van Poppel, or he's talking. And so it's a lot. It's going to be a sea of change. It's going to feel a little bit like 2023, where there's new players and there's new coaches, and you have to kind of determine, all right, this is what it means when Addison Williams says this about a player, or when John Butler as the defensive coordinator is talking about his group or whatever. Like, you got kind of used to, okay, when Tony White says this, I think it means this. And so it's always kind of a learning experience for us over in the media as well. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because that does kind of change the picture a little bit. But it's I'm more excited for this spring, which is funny because there's no spring game, than I probably was last year, because I am really interested to see how different this all sounds, or hear how different this all sounds. I'm not sure how much I'm going to get to see, those opening availabilities. Sometimes you're watching stretch lines or, very, very low energy drills or what have you. But I have to say, I have a little bit more enthusiasm for spring football coverage this year than in years past.
So 2 years ago, I think what dominated the spring football headlines was just the player development, the fact that they were hitting. It seemed like every week there were players that we thought we had a read on, and then Matt Rule would say something about those players, and we'd be like, oh, maybe it's in a different direction. The first guy I think of was Bryce Benhart, right? In that first spring with Matt Rule, he got a lot of run. Last year's spring headline was just kind of the quarterbacks, right? Is Dylan going to be able to start? What's the situation here? Is there going to be any sort of competition? Is he the guy, right? What do you think the headline that will dominate spring football this year be?
It's a great question, and I would be just guessworking on this because it's hard to know exactly.
Can I give you one? Can I give you one?
Yeah,
and then you tell
me.
You
give me one. I'll throw a couple at you that
I think the backup quarterback combo is going to be one that is pretty big, and it might get a bit exhausting. But I think you have 3 guys, and Marcus Davia, Jalen Gramstead, and even TJ Lateef, who's going to be a freshman, 4-star from California. I think that combo of like who is the guy if Dylan goes down will be important, because Dylan was the first quarterback in 12 seasons to play the full year to start every single game. And so I think you'll get the, what happens if he gets hurt combo a lot this spring. And we really don't know who the backup QB is.
So I think that would be a portion of the conversation that's going to be built around. I think a lot of spring is going to be Dana Holgorsen, 1.5 years in, 1 1/3 years in. I don't know what the number. I think we're going to get a lot of like, what is this offense going to be?
Sure.
A lot of, every Dana Holgorsen media session is going to be really picked through and parsed apart to try to glean information to to sort of determine, all right, this is what they're going to do. This is how it's going to be different than those last few games. This is the way that Dylan Raiola is being challenged. This is what he wants to see. Like, I think we're going to get a lot of that.
Yeah.
Now, inside of that, there is this other carve-out portion that I think could be kind of an interesting thing this spring. What if it's just a spring of Emmett Johnson? He's the unquestioned number one running back.
I'd love it.
He is the unquestioned number one running back. They don't have a more known weapon on offense. I think that's fair to say at this point.
Dane Key maybe, but at least not one that's been in a Husker uniform, right?
We don't know exactly what Dane Key's going to look like.
Yeah, that's
but you have a fair idea of Emmett Johnson, and this is the first year where he's just the guy.
Yeah.
And we got to see what it looked like when Dana Holgorsen was able to build an offense with him in the bowl game. We know that they want to utilize him in the passing game. It wouldn't surprise me if he becomes a focal point of, we want to build a lot around Emmett Johnson to kind of take some things off of Dylan Raiola's plate to make our offense more explosive and multiple. And, then you're talking about how you can use him as a receiver and the different ways that the run game can work with Emmett Johnson. And that's going to lead to the very obvious follow-up question. Who the hell is the backup at running back? And if it's Quentin Ives, we're going to have to blindly accept that the only thing we've really seen from Quentin Ives is one carry in a bowl game.
Yeah.
So that in itself is a thing. But I have kind of come from a different position where at the end of the portal, it was like, all right, they probably needed another running back to maybe they really believe this much in Emmett Johnson. And we could be heading to perhaps a larger than expected running back year, because who else are they going to give the ball to? And that's a guy Emmett doesn't ever want to come off the field anyways. So if he has the conditioning and the ability, and Dana Holgorsen wants to load him up, and we've seen him do that with different running backs at different stops throughout his career, we could have a big spring of Emmett Johnson conversation. I really think that.
All the paper guys have written down bell cow already, so we can look forward to the bell cow questions.
I want to throw. You say bell cow, I want to throw up.
Matt, in the last decade, in this space at 9 a.m. on Fridays, I have lamented Nebraska's lack of a bell cow at least 1,000 times. I know. I have never been wrong. Never been wrong.
The second I came in to this market, we were talking about Marquis Stepp and whether or not he could be the bell cow for Nebraska football. All right. The minute I got here, I've never been able to escape ever since Amir, we haven't had anybody.
That's true.
It is true.
Yeah, not wrong.
It is true.
Not spring football, but there's a pro day this next week. Shafe, do you know anything? Tommy Hill, all healthy, ready to go? Are we going to see more out of the guys that were in Indianapolis trying to improve numbers or do things differently?
I don't know that there's a reason for a lot of the guys that worked out in Indy. Their numbers were good.
I agree.
I don't know that there's much that Ty Robinson or Thomas Fedoni can do. Now, they may be there and get asked by certain teams to try to they want to see certain things in drills, or they want to drill work. I could totally see, but I don't know that it makes sense for some of these guys to rerun the 40 or to redo the vertical or whatever it is. I mean, between Nair, who I'm not entirely positive would be back here for it, but Robinson and Fedoni, I don't know that there's a lot for them to do. Now, for Tommy Hill, I'm not sure what his status is. He's kind of an intriguing guy, because you could see someone who just wants to throw out his senior year and be like, all right, plantar fasciitis, like how good are you really expected to be when you're dealing with that kind of foot injury for the entirety of a season?
Right.
Look at what this guy did as a junior. I could see an NFL evaluation team being pretty enamored by him, but still wanting to get eyes on what he can do. So he's probably the most interesting. But then you have Nash Helpmaker, who wasn't invited to the combine. He's probably going to put up 804 reps of the bench. They're going to have to tell him, Nash, you're done. You can't do this anymore. But he's someone that I'm intrigued by. And then you got Ben Scott, Bryce Benhart. You have, I don't know that John Bullock's career involves the NFL necessarily, but they've got some guys that are going to have some opportunities to see if they can catch on as undrafted free agents, or maybe a late 7th round pick because of a good workout. So they have some interesting people that didn't have the combine experience. So while we may not see Robinson or Fedoni, doing the sort of drill work, if you would, or not drill work, but you know what I mean, like the workout stuff. There's definitely some people that can use this to try to get themselves on an NFL practice squad or get themselves on the radar. And so it's kind of a bigger pro day than what we've seen around here in recent years, where it's maybe been one or two people and they're just trying to get into the third day. Here you've got it where you have some guys that could be second day picks. Mm-hmm. You have some guys that are trying to make sure that they're in the draft. And you have some guys that are trying to line up training camp or practice squad possibilities. And there's usually always a surprise somewhere in there. And so again, similar to spring football, and maybe it's just this a renewed outlook on life that I know that there's no spring game at the end of this, but I even find myself interested in pro day in a way that I haven't.
That's interesting. Hey, Mike Schaefer, Huskers 24/7. Before we let you go here, you got to give us a national championship for the NCAA tournament. Who do you got?
Yeah, so I filled out my bracket. I always give myself 1 minute to do the entire thing.
Good,
and
proper.
It ended up being Florida over BYU.
Hey,
how BYU got there, I don't know.
I have BYU my Final Four, big dog. So we're lockstep. It's a good pick, Richie Saunders.
I also have UCLA in the Elite Eight. Like the whole right side of the bracket doesn't make any sense, and then the whole left side, I think, is just Florida and Auburn. So, Florida, I have felt since November when I happened upon them in a couple games, like it's the best team in the country. So I'm just sort of sticking with that. But Texas Tech would be a team that I would like to see. I thought they kind of played with their food a little bit in last night's game and still came away with the win.
Yeah.
Houston has looked good. That Houston Gonzaga game should be a lot of fun on Saturday.
Have Gonzaga winning that. It's going to be a barn burner. Dude.
Yeah,
it's going to be one hell of
I think it'll be closer than what some might think, but I feel Houston's going to come away with it. But at the same time, I mean, I'm excited for some of these matchups on Saturday, and today feels like the quieter of the 2 days, which means maybe we're going to get lots of drama.
Hopefully,
maybe a buzzer beater or two. Hopefully that's what we got in store here on a Friday.
Hey, Shafe, you're always the best when you come on. Really, really appreciate it. We'll get back to you next week. All right, my man?
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one. Enjoy the basketball.
See you, Shaver.
We go from one Husker football source to another incredible Husker football source. Don't go anywhere. Matt Verzel coming up next here on 1620 The Zone. Hey, it's 9:20 on a Friday, and you know what that means. We welcome in Matt Verzel. Matt, how are you doing, my man?
How you doing, boys?
Good to see you. Good
Good.
to hear from you. Hey, let's get right into it. Deion Sanders made some headlines, and I immediately thought about you because I think the idea is kind of up the alley of what you and I have talked about in the past when it comes to practicing. Deion wants another Power 5 school to come to Boulder to practice with the team for 3 days, and then at the end of the 3-day joint practice, do a spring game, a little bit like what they do in the NFL. What are your thoughts on it, and do you think it's something that Nebraska should look toward implementing in their spring?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if what we're moving to with college football is professional football anyway, because the players are getting paid, and
Yeah,
might as well just run it like a camp, which I have. I actually attended one of those. They're kind of fun to see. My nephews and I went on our uncle-nephew trip one year, and we were in Detroit and the Patriots did a joint practice, so it was kind of cool.
Hey, so I do want to ask you this because I wouldn't know because I don't have the player perspective like you do. But in spring ball, when you would go against a lot of the similar guys every single day, did you find it a little bit too repetitive? Do you think that at a certain point the benefit of practicing against a guy over and over again wasn't as high because you kind of got to learn their tendencies and what they did well and what they didn't do well? And do you think having an event like this would be great because you get to see how different guys operate and compete against that?
It all depends on the quality of your own roster.
Yeah.
So for us, no.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it was. You were going up against 10 to 15 psychopaths a day, so it was.
Sure.
If you could beat them, you could pretty much beat anybody. So
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
There is some probably value in it, but for me personally, like iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And so you might as well either one way or the other, okay? And I think this is something that happened. Either one way or the other, somebody's going to win that day, okay? So if you win that day, that's great. But then if you continue to lose, and you lose day after day after day, and you don't do anything to change it, then that's a huge you problem, okay? That's something you got to look internally in yourself and fix because you're just content with getting your ass kicked the whole time. And that ain't how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you've got to go into your toolbox. You've got to get better at the things you're supposed to be doing. Then eventually you start to win. Well, then when you start to win, then the other guy on the other side of the ball is like, well, he's won 3 days in a row. I don't like this. So now you make each other better, just evolving. And I think that's the mindset or the mentality that has to happen for a lot of college kids.
How many layers of legislation have to be in place before an NFL-style joint training camp could work at the collegiate level? Because you're already hearing about it with March Madness and the coaches talking about where they're going, where half of their rosters are going. If you've got two college programs together, Nebraska and Colorado and Oregon, whoever, and you have the second transfer portal window coming up, it feels like it's ripe for tampering and to go, I really liked that guy practicing with us. I want to bring him in. And then they go offer him a boatload of money.
Yeah, I'm the opposite way. I would eliminate as much government involvement as possible because I think as we start to watch the world evolve, you can see what those morons do. So I would say you're probably your best bet if you want to do this and you really want to go at it is the Big Ten, the SEC. They're going to have to pick who they want to go with them. You just take football completely out of the equation and you go make your own league.
Yeah. Sure.
Now you can control it. You can set the parameters. You can set the rules when the kid goes in. Now he's going to be on a contract. Okay, so now you're going to eliminate some of you can leave. Like I think honestly college should involve, especially with NIL, and I know there's probably some form of them, but it's I think you got to get them into 2 and 3 year contracts. And that they break the contract, now you have a valid reason. Like, yeah, okay, you broke the contract, we're not paying you this. and you're going to be paid through this date for what we already paid you. Now you need to pay us back because you broke the contract. So that I think is going to be a much more efficient way to do it. The NCAA, let's just be honest with ourselves, is a powerless entity.
Yep.
It's great for the other sports because it's not the main money driver. It's like anything. When you're the main money driver, you feel you have more control over things than you probably actually do, but you're the one making the money.
Mm-hmm.
And and Nebraska's spoiled. Nebraska has 3 revenue generating sports.
Yeah.
Not a lot of colleges in the country have that, which it's also upsetting to me why Nebraska's so tight with its purse string. Because you have 3 that make money, many just have 1 that makes money.
Yeah.
So spend.
No,
the best way to make $10 million is to spend $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, be aggressive with it. But that if you really want to get that accomplished, I think that's the best method.
So, we're in this era now where just money is flying everywhere and there are barely any rules and tampering is happening, this, that, and the other. And I know it's basketball, it's not football, but what do you think of, I don't know if you saw it, but Kevin Willard and Will Wade kind of went to the podium, during their press conferences and kind of just laid out the skinny of their current coaching situation. Will Wade said, NC State has been talking to me. I've told my players and I'm probably going to end up coaching at NC State. He even said yesterday that, hey, like he's talked to recruits and said, I'm probably going to go Power 5 somewhere, so you can maybe come and follow me. Kevin Willard of Maryland, their head coach, he went on the podium and said, well, my athletic director is probably going to SMU. And so it's going to be really difficult for me to, negotiate a contract with him and, kind of just laid out everything that's going on at Maryland. What is your take on just head coaches saying the quiet stuff about what's going on behind the scenes out loud to the media?
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Right? Media has lost, to me, take offense if you need to.
I won't.
Media has lost the ability to just cultivate a story. They want drama.
Yeah.
They want click. They want that. If you don't think tampering existed with players and coaches for the history of time, then I think you probably need to step outside, hop on your short bus and head home, because you're just naive to think that.
Yeah,
it's happened. I had teammates that were getting calls from coaches while we were in college.
Wow.
T.O. was courted by Colorado. Like, it's not a perfect world, and this is not a shiny, happy industry.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wants to come, everybody wants to be wanted. And if you feel you're getting disrespected at your school, or you think there's a better opportunity, you're going to go take that better opportunity. It's my job as the university to make sure you're in the best spot possible. Because that would be more my question. I'd go talk to the AD and be like, why does he think that way? What are you doing that makes him think this isn't the best spot for him? What aren't you providing? What rub is there? What don't you like? Same thing I think with players. But hey, coach, I can go get this bag. You know what, buddy? We can't match that. I totally understand. I wish you all the best. Or, well, you'll do your production. Let's sit down and talk and look and see what you got. Here's where we think we can get to. Is that enough to keep you? Great. So it seems like people are just grasping at things like, how dare he want to leave our school?
Sure.
Well, maybe your school needs to do more. Maybe he doesn't feel you're committed to him the way he's committed to your program.
Do you think that athletic departments in general having a tough time adjust to the fact that coaches and players now have more power than what they used to?
Well, yeah, you used to have a moneymaker that didn't talk back.
Yeah.
Now the moneymaker talks back. And you don't want to give up your purse strings because you got 15 to 20 people in every department that are on tenure that don't teach classes, but they're doing some research paper that you're never going to see.
Yeah.
And probably will never get done. You want to fix the system, clean out the tenures.
Sure.
Like, that's what the money,
sure.
I mean, we don't want to have hard discussion about how inefficient our universities are. Like, people will tell you prostitution is the oldest form of work. It's education.
Sure.
Education is it's dirty and it's crooked, and I can get a lot more done doing other things.
Yeah.
But you know, right now they're all tied on the football team, so people go because they want to go and they want to try to learn and they want to try to do those things. But it's clean that out, clean out with all the other stuff they got to pay for, then see what happens. And if you really want to get down to the brass tacks of it, you make sure all your athletic programs have everything that they need, and then you set a production standard. We've gotten you everything you need. If you don't win 11, 12 games, you're gone. Because when you win, people like being around winners. Look at Georgia's enrollment. Look at Bama's enrollment. Look at Ohio State's enrollment. When you win, people will come there blindly.
Yeah.
I want to be with a winner. It's the whole premise that Scott was built on. Monsignor Gilg said, hey, we're going to do this, and we're going to be great at sports. And then watch how many people want to come now. They struggle with numbers sometimes, but they win.
It's a whole premise on what the best, when we look at the best football programs in the country still to this day, what were they built off of? Just the want and will to win and whatever they had to do to win. And at the end of the day, you're absolutely right in the regard that we can talk about all the money and all the sponsorships and NIL and this and that. It just, at the end of the day, it just comes down to how do you play between those white lines and whether or not you score more points than the other team. I mean, that's just
correct. And you got to branch out. You got to get creative.
Yeah.
And Nebraska used to be an innovator. First strength and conditioning staff. First academic center. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Nebraska got slaughtered.
Yep.
They got content on their laurels. They thought they were, doing things, and it didn't work. So now, okay, let's figure out a creative way to beat NIL. All right. Can I go sell a kid? Hey, I've got your whole future planned out for you. If you make it 3 years, I can get you to be a millionaire by 53 with just simple investment. No guarantee, but this is our plan for you.
Yeah.
So then when you go play pro ball, that's great. You're going to have even more money. But we got to get you set up for the rest of your life because you're going to commit to us for 3 to 4 years.
Hey, Vers, all great stuff. Before I let you go, who's your NCAA tournament champion? You're pretty good with this stuff.
I'm just on a countdown for this whole basketball to be over. I despise the sport. I have a future that I put at the beginning or the end of last season on UConn for the three-peat. Got a great number, so I'm hoping they make it a couple rounds and I get a nice buyout.
Yep.
And then the child in me, when basketball was real basketball and St. John's was good, I have a win-it-all bet on St. John's.
Hell yeah. That's awesome, Vers. Hey, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week, all right, my man?
See you, boys.
See you. That was great talking to Matt Verzel. This always just, I just feel like his experiences with where he's, what he's done in his playing career and just his career in general, and then also just his outlook on things. So it's always a great combo. Always love having Matt on every Friday at 9:40. Hey, we're
it was a
winding
little too
down
much
here.
Big East love for my taste.
Yeah, it's okay. Big East's doing pretty well. Hey, we are winding down toward the end of the show. Don't go anywhere, though. We're going to read a couple emails. We're going to talk about Creighton's big game against Auburn. A couple, some stats for you that could get you a little encouraged, and even a local paper in Alabama predicting Creighton to win. What? All that and more coming up next year on Gary and Matt. This is the song that will be playing in many bars tomorrow, as right before the Creighton Blue Jays take on the number 1 overall seed, the Auburn Tigers, the team that keep it going. Keep this. You're slowing. You're pushing it down. Keep this right in here.
I'm keeping it.
This is
I'm
incredible.
keeping it here.
This is a perfect song picked by Joey Colbert here because it is the final countdown.
I got some good tunes.
This is a team, man, that they have the pieces. They do. They have the pieces. They got the superstar. They got the point guard. They got some spacing. They got a secondary scorer in Jemiah Neal. They got the bench pieces with Fedor and Trout coming off the bench. They got it, man. They just got to put it all together. That's what we've been saying all year. Ever since Pop went down, man, I know they're not as deep, but if they put it all together, they can do something. They put it all together yesterday, and they kicked the crap out of an 8 seed that should have been a 6 seed, and now they will play an Auburn Tigers team who kind of reeling a little bit. Losers of 3 of 4 heading into the tournament, albeit against really good teams. Most of them, Alabama was a 2-point game. Tennessee was a 5-point game. They were sleepwalking yesterday against Alabama State. People are nervous in Alabama. The Montgomery Advertiser has predicted this game, which will tip off tomorrow at 6:10 p.m. Pre-game, Blue Jay shoot-around will start here at 4:30. Pre-game with John Bishop will start at 5:30. Montgomery Advertiser predicts Creighton 72, Auburn 69.
Oh.
How about that?
Nice.
How about that? They're nervous in Bama. Do you know who's not nervous? Greg McDermott.
He's done it before.
He's done it before. The Blue Jays have never, so they've made I think it was the last, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the last 5 tournaments they haven't been stopped in the round, or they haven't been stopped in the round of 32 only once or something like that, Joey?
Yeah, so they advance the last 5 NCAA tournaments, and if they win tomorrow, it would be 3 straight Sweet 16 appearances.
It's an incredible accomplishment for an incredible coach that has built this program up to heights where maybe not a lot of people thought they could go, but they are going there. And let me tell you something right now. Auburn knew that they got a bad draw when Louisville and Creighton were playing each other in the first round of the NCAA tournament. But, man, I don't think they realize how bad of a draw they really have gotten if Creighton continues to play at the level they played yesterday. I got a couple of stats here. So Auburn is an incredible offensive team. They're still the number 1 offensive rated team in KenPom. Their defense has slid a little bit back. I was looking at shot charts. Auburn, obviously really, really good in the paint. They have a right side baseline mid-range game, which slightly concerns me considering the fact that in that drop defensive Creighton, that mid-range game,
it opens up.
It opens up a little bit. Here's another concern. Auburn is very strong on the left side wing in 3-point shooting. Creighton, pretty damn good at guarding it, but on the right side wing, they're also very strong. Creighton's weakness is in there as well. So the spots where Auburn has been able to punish teams from 3 are spots that Creighton hasn't done a good job defending this year. Guys to look out for: Denver Jones and Miles Kelly. Those are their 2 3-point shooters. Jones, 40% from the 3-point line. Kelly, 39.9% from the 3-point line. Janiah Broome is obviously the superstar, contender to be player of the year in the NCAA, just in college basketball in general. He'll be manned by Ryan Kalkbrenner, but it will be that perimeter defense, especially Jemiah Neal, which is going to be key in this one for the Jays.
Bruce Pearl, all kinds of experience. So you're not looking at the same thing you were in round 1. Auburn, though, although just kind of comparisons on where you were looking at the experience for teams, Auburn does have more experience of playing together. However, they have not made it out of the round of 32 in several years, since pre-pandemic. So you're looking at a team that does not have that experience of making a Sweet 16 plus run. And that's, as you guys were saying, that's all Creighton has done of recent,
Sure.
The 3 out of the last 4. You put this one together.
It's a Creighton team that's been there before, that has won at this level before, guys. I mean, Ryan Kalkbrenner has advanced, and Stephen Ashworth has advanced, and Greg McDermott has coached in big games like this. And there will be always an advantage with that because Coach McDermott is such a good coach. it will come down to whether or not Denver and Kelly can hit threes. If those two aren't clicking, I think that Creighton is going to have the matchup on the inside. I mean, we saw it yesterday with Kalkbrenner, how great he was on defense. I know Janiyah Broome has that beautiful drop, turnaround, baby hook game. So you're just hoping that Kalkbrenner's length and size can maybe adjust that. You just got to make sure that...
Are the Tigers going to be sleepy for the first 10 minutes?
Well, so that's another thing, too, where, wow, they're making... Look at this chicken they're making on this TV. Holy crap, that looks incredible. I mean, the marinade that guy just put on the chicken is insane. All right, anyway.
Yeah, that's
back
good-looking
to
chicken.
It's a great-looking chicken. I want to eat that right now. Anyway, back to the Creighton Blue Jays.
You got to be really hungry at the end of this game or at the end of this show.
I'll tell you this right now. Auburn is kind of fading in the wrong direction at this point in the season. They have not been playing their best basketball. Creighton is moving up in the better direction. And so they have been clicking. They did not look good against DePaul, but they found something, and Fedor found something in that last 2 minutes that allowed them to come back from down 11 and win that game in double overtime. They looked really damn good against St. John's up until St. John's pulled St. John's and just turned the water off with 10 minutes to go. But it's a team where yesterday was the exact game that everyone had been waiting for. It was the exact game where it's like, man, Ashworth is clicking. Neal is clicking. McAndrew is clicking. Kalkbrenner's dominating both sides of the floor. If you get that version of Creighton tomorrow and you get the version of what you saw Alabama have yesterday, Creighton will win this game. Couple of gambling stats here. Auburn, so the line, let me look at the line right now. I think it opened at 10.5, if I'm not mistaken. It has, let's see if there's any movement here. The line is currently 9, okay? So Auburn has a 12-9 record against the spread this season when favored by 8.5 points. Creighton is a perfect 2-0 against the spread when an underdog by 8.5 more points this season. So just keep that in mind.
Creighton gets this done. They're my favorite to come out of the South. They win this game. I like them over everybody else in the bracket.
I'm not
in that region.
Looking at a current bracket. Who's the 2 seed in that bracket?
Michigan State.
And then if they win, they would play either Michigan or Texas A&M.
Let me tell you something right now. A&M is dangerous.
Physical.
Michigan's
got 7-footers.
JT topping. JT coming. I like Bryant today. I think Bryant,
you've been big on Bryant.
I think the Bryant Bulldogs can end up beating Michigan State today. It 3 of the last 4 years. It's happened. 15's beaten to 2. I think Bryant can do it. Hey, thank you so much for listening to 1620 The Zone this week in our coverage of the NCAA tournament. Now we're throwing it to CBS here. You've been listening to Gary Matt.